Chapter 81. Although Christmas was approaching, there were still many pedestrians on the street, and Ryan was surprised to find that there were still a few shops open. Smelling the sweet smell in the air, my stomach growled involuntarily. There is heavy snow falling in the sky. At this time, there is nothing better than a cup of warm hot cocoa and a bacon sandwich to fill your stomach. Thinking of this, Ryan stepped forward and opened the door of a shop on the street. "Welcome, I really didn't expect that there would be customers on this damn day." A middle-aged woman in an apron raised her face from the counter and looked at Ryan with a depressed expression. "To be clear in advance, the chef is off today. If you want to have a good meal, please go out." The middle-aged woman continued. "A cup of hot cocoa and a sandwich, preferably with bacon." Ryan found a seat and sat down at random. "I should have these." "Wait." The landlady said, turned and walked to the kitchen, not caring that Ryan was sitting alone in the store. Ryan looked at everything in the store curiously. There were several oil paintings on the walls, but the painters were not very good. They should have been bought from the second-hand market in the community. There are several electric fans on the wall, but they are now covered with cloth to prevent dust. There is a stack of napkins on each table and a small trash can next to it. There is a fireplace on the wall, with pine wood burning inside, emitting a light fragrance and bringing a touch of warmth to the store. The landlady quickly came out of the back kitchen, carrying a cup and a plate. The cup was steaming, and the sandwich on the plate was exuding an enticing aroma. Ryan took out a 10-pound note and put it on the table, then took the hot cocoa and sandwich. But after the lady boss put down her things, she didn't take the money. "Okay, little ghost head, get out of here after eating. I know that for children of your grade, you may dislike your parents nagging, but on this holiday, it's better for the family to be together," the landlady said, while walking to the counter. Ryan couldn't help but smile, but he didn't say anything more and just ate his dinner in silence. Just when Ryan finished half of the sandwich, a gust of cold wind made Ryan shiver. "Ryan, Favo, why are you two old guys here again?" The landlady's voice sounding a little happy. "Ha ha ha, you know that I don't have a single firewood in my house." An old man with sunken eyes and wrinkles on his face but bright eyes said with a smile. "Doris, let's start with the usual dishes. Let me tell you, Favo found a bottle of good wine at the beginning of this year. I've been wanting to drink it for a long time, so I have to try it today." Next to the old man a middle-aged man said with the vicissitudes of life. "Ryan, there are still customers in my shop," the landlady said unhappily. "Sorry, I didn't notice." Ryan also noticed that Ryan was an obvious minor and apologized quickly. Ryan had been paying attention to these two from the beginning, because the magic fluctuations in their bodies were so conspicuous in the Muggle world, but Ryan was confident that they had not discovered the magic in them. The magic calming method is a technique from another world that can silence the magic power in the body and cannot be discovered by ordinary wizards. Ryan and Favo found a seat not far from the fireplace and sat down, not far from Ryan's seat. Doris, the proprietress, soon brought over a plate of fried peanuts. "I'm always surprised every time I see it. It's really hard to imagine that peanuts taste so delicious after being fried." Favo pinched a peanut and threw it into his mouth, tasting it. Ryan also ate a peanut and said, "Quick, bring out your good wine." Then Ryan watched in surprise as Favo took out a red and white wine bottle from his arms. "My old friend spent a lot of effort to bring this to me, so you have to save some money." I know, there are not many birds that can fly across the Eurasian continent." "I know, you have said it several times." Ryan couldn't wait to grab the bottle from Favo's hand and poured himself a glass. Favo happily poured himself a glass, and then carefully put the bottle away. After taking a sip, Favo closed his eyes and made a ha sound. "It would be great if Zwomo was here," Ryan said while eating peanuts. "Is that Zwomo who often eats meat, drinks alcohol, and likes to eat sweets?" Doris asked. "What's wrong with him? I haven't seen him for a long time. A year ago, Zwomo seemed to have suddenly forgotten something, so he should be recuperating in the hospital now," Favo said melancholy as he took a sip of wine. "Zwomo is a powerful wizard, but time will never let go of every life, no matter you are strong or not." "Ha, I just said that the old man will always get retribution for ruining his body like this. Old people should treat themselves better," Doris said while lying on the counter. "Zwomo used to brag about fighting vampires every Christmas, and I got tired of hearing it. But it suddenly disappeared this year, and I still have some thoughts." Ryan sighed and said, who would have thought of him? You will forget the glory you once had. Faohu smiled, it's called. Doris, what's it called? It's the disease that causes old people to forget their memories. Alzheimer's. Favo, look at your memory, I think you are in danger. Yes, yes, Alzheimer's disease. Favo's voice dropped. He quietly whined into Ryan's ear and said with a smile, and it's better to forget it, otherwise according to the temperament of the old guy Drom, after hearing Mr. Lockhart's deeds, he would be anxious to find Lockhart. Mr. Lockhart's duel, after all, both of them have swam with vampires, but Mr. Lockhart's deeds are greater. Ha ha ha, it's true. Ryan laughed. Sorry to disturb your interest. Ryan interrupted from the side. Oh, hello, what can I do for you? Favo put down his glass and smiled kindly. Can you tell me more about Drom? Ryan said while quietly revealing a hint of his wand. Ha ha ha. Faohu didn't expect to meet a curious little wizard here, laughing. Of course, come here, kid, sit here. Favo pulled out a seat for Ryan. Doris, have another cup of hot cocoa. Chapter 82. By the time Ryan came out of the shop, Pays had been waiting on the street lamp outside for a long time. Cuckoo! Pays yelled twice angrily, but after seeing Favo and Ryan coming out of the shop, they flew to the street lamp again, tilting their heads and looking at the three people below pretending to be curious. Your owl? This is really extraordinary. Ryan drank a little too much and was a little shaky at the moment, but he could still tell at a glance that Ryan's owl had the blood of magical animals. Goo goo. Pays heard Ryan's words and tilted his head to look at Ryan, his little head filled with doubts. Come down, these two are also wizards, there is no need to keep it secret. Ryan raised his head and said to Pays. When Pays heard this, the arrow flew from the street lamp and landed on Ryan. He first rubbed Ryan's face, and then stretched out his right paw to signal Ryan to take away his Christmas gift. However, Ryan ignored Pays. Instead, he greeted Favo and Ryan first, and then transferred the gifts in Pays's anklet to his own seamless stretch bag. Because today was Christmas Eve, people were all reunited at home, and there was no one on the street. There was just flying snow in the sky, so Ryan didn't avoid it too much. It's great. You can still receive a Christmas gift, so you have to cherish it. When we grow up, not many people will remember it. Faohu said with a smile. Yes, yes, when you get old, not many people will remember you. Ryan also echoed. Ha ha ha, okay, kid, go home quickly. Favo supported the shaky Ryan and said to Ryan kindly. Ryan nodded, then walked in a random direction. Ryan was very satisfied with tonight's action. He used Zwomu's incident to get a lot of words out of Faohu's mouth. In other words, Faohu didn't take it seriously at all and directly told Ryan the matter about the ruins as a story. But it's no wonder that Favo was there, because the ruins were once discovered here, and were later divided up by the Ministry of Magic and several families. Some of the soup was left for some wild wizards with no backing, and the distribution was completed. However, after Favo's explanation, Ryan compared the drawings and discovered that perhaps the former Ministry of Magic had not been completely mined. When Pays saw that Ryan was ignoring him, he gently pecked Ryan on the face. You're doing well, Pays. Go back later and ask Pudding to make something delicious for you. Ryan touched Pays' head. Then Ryan came to the place where the ruins were and observed them for a long time before taking Pays, who was shivering with cold, back to the forest cabin. There were a lot more things in the house than when Ryan left, making the whole house look more cozy. Master, you are back. Pudding bowed deeply. After all, he was in charge of a plantation for his master. If this were told, it would be enough to envy all other house elves. This was a plantation, and I had never heard of a house elf being so trusted by his owner. Thinking of this, Pudding's waist became even bigger. However, after a long time, Pudding didn't hear Ryan's response, and couldn't help but feel a little strange. So it secretly raised its head and glanced at Ryan. Plop! Pudding immediately knelt down and smashed his head to the ground repeatedly. It's all Pudding's fault. Pudding shouldn't mess with his master's house. Pudding deserves to die. Pudding kept wailing and took a candlestick from the cabinet next to him and kept beating himself. Ryan sighed. It wasn't because Pudding had changed his house without permission, but because Pudding acted like this, it really made Ryan feel bad. Okay, don't do this anymore. You did a good job. I don't mean to blame you. Ryan waved his hand and said a little tiredly. Thank you, master, thank you, master. Master is really the best master in the world. Pudding kept kowtowing in thanks. Okay, you go make some delicious food and send it to Pace. Ryan quickly assigned tasks to Pudding to keep him busy, otherwise Ryan believed that Pudding could spend half an hour here. Pudding got Ryan's instructions and happily ran to work on Pace's dinner. In Pudding's opinion, this is the correct way for the master to forgive, because only work can demonstrate the necessity of the existence of house elves, and the master will not find a reason to let the elf go free. Phew! Reen breathed a sigh of relief slowly. Pudding was noisy just now, which really gave Ryan a headache after a busy day. Sometimes house elves are good, but other times they're terrible. Ryan sat in his study, thinking about tomorrow's trip to the ruins. Hey! Ryan unconsciously touched a cup of hot tea. Ryan nodded. Although Pudding was a little noisy sometimes, the house elf was still very considerate. After studying the drawings for a while, Ryan took a shower and went to bed. Early the next morning, Ryan was awakened by the sweet smell of pumpkin porridge. Master, you are awake. Ryan got up from the bed and heard Pudding's words as soon as he left the bedroom. Breakfast has been prepared. Please enjoy it. After Pudding finished speaking, he entered the small room next to him. House elves cannot appear in the owner's sight when the owner is dining. This is a rule that house elves have always followed. After breakfast, Ryan had the foresight to open the gift from Hermione. It was a scarf, all white and green. Judging from the stitching, the little girl must have knitted it herself. Without much hesitation, Ryan wrote a letter and asked Pace to give it to Hermione, with words to the effect that knitting this scarf was a blessing and I like it very much. After writing the letter, Ryan approached to the ancient well in the center of the town he inspected last night. This is the entrance to the ruins. The whole underground was very dark, and the light projected from the well mouth was the only source of light. Fluorescence. A ball of light rose from Ryan's hand, illuminating the entire underground space. In order to avoid being noticed by the Ministry of Magic, Ryan simply did not bring a wand this time. The entire underground space is not large, only about the size of a room. There is a pool in the middle and open space around it. It can be seen that there should have been something on the wall, but now you can only see traces, but not the original state. The surrounding walls are exactly the same, and it is impossible to tell which wall is the entrance by looking at it with the naked eye. Ryan turned on his magic perception and immediately discovered that there were fluctuations of magic power on the wall on the left, which was so conspicuous in the Muggle world without magic. But what makes Ryan feel strange is that only that wall has magic power, and other than that, there is no magic power at all. Chapter 83. This is very abnormal, and the reason is very simple. It is absolutely impossible for a magical ruin to have magic only at the entrance, even if it has been turned over by the Ministry of Magic. Can't the Ministry of Magic be so hungry that they even took away the magic circle on the wall? Detection technique. This is a spell that Ryan got when he was in the alchemy circle. It is best to use it at this time. Soon, Ryan got the information. This is a detection and teleportation array. If it is not the person who wants to teleport, then the ruins that exist on the surface will be activated. If it is the person who wants to teleport, then the teleportation array will be activated. As for where to teleport to, it depends on the mood of the ruins builder. Ryan hesitated for a while, but finally decided to go and have a look. He touched the crystal on his wrist, and there was a teleportation circle fixed on it. As long as he found something wrong, he could immediately teleport to his forest cabin and activate all the defensive circles. Ryan stepped forward, raised his left hand and stroked the wall, looking for magic nodes, and then input magic power to activate the stone wall. But what puzzles Ryan is that the ruins really exist, which proves that the things recorded on those pieces of paper are indeed true, but the scroll written on the paper and in the book borrowed from the library, the encryption spell, was nowhere to be seen. This made Ryan a little worried and curious. The magic circle on the stone wall was well preserved. As soon as Ryan's magic power was input, the magic circle immediately started functioning. Channels of blue light instantly seeped out from the wall, outlining an extremely complex pattern. Ryan wanted to pull out his hand, but found that he couldn't pull it out at all. A huge suction force attracted Ryan's hand to the stone wall. The blue light continued to flow, seemingly confirming Ryan's identity. 2 minutes later, the blue light suddenly enlarged, stinging Ryan's eyes. Ryan couldn't help but use his right hand to block his eyes. When Ryan felt that his eyes had returned to normal and he slowly opened his glasses, he found that he was in a strange room. The floor was made of metal, and the walls were also made of metal. Light from nowhere illuminated the entire space. Ryan looked at this strange space. He now no longer believed in the book and the few pieces of paper he found, because the records above were completely inconsistent with this place. He walked to the window to see what was happening outside. This is a city where the houses and streets are all made of metal, shining under the unknown light. This city is huge, at least Ryan can't see the end at a glance. Go out and have a look. This idea suddenly came to Ryan's mind, and at this moment, a crack suddenly appeared on the smooth wall, then slowly expanded, and finally turned into a door. Ryan was shocked. He just had an idea and his mind was stolen. For a moment, Ryan felt that this was not a good place. He immediately released a defensive spell on his brain, and then released a detection spell on the surrounding area. But unexpectedly, the detection spell did not detect any malicious mental attack spells or spirit-stealing spells. Ryan felt more and more that there was something strange here. He walked out of the door that just appeared and came into the steel forest. Everything here seems to be made of metal, including the pavement and even the trees on both sides of the road. There is no trace of life here, because there are no furniture or daily necessities in any of the houses. Although a light source from nowhere illuminated the entire world, Ryan still couldn't help but feel terrified. Everything was too quiet, it didn't feel like a normal ruin. Magic Eye Detective. After walking for a while, Ryan released an eye made of magic and flew high into the sky. On the one hand, it is to detect how high it is here, on the other hand, it is to find if there is anything special in this city, and finally, it is to detect whether there are any restrictions here. The eyes composed of magic power rose rapidly and soon reached the top. There would be a layer of invisible material blocking the top. About 2,000 meters. Ryan nodded and roughly estimated the value. Then, Ryan began to concentrate on observing this silent city. Soon, Ryan discovered that the city was larger than he had imagined. The area he was currently in was the southeast corner of the city, and in the center of the city, there was a magnificent church. Ryan was confused for a moment. This was obviously a wizarding ruins. How could there be a church? But even though he felt strange, Ryan still wanted to go. Now that he has entered the ruins and has not found the exit yet, he is not willing to stay in this ruins for thousands of years. The material used in this church is obviously different from that of the surrounding houses. It is made of light gold and shines with a holy brilliance under the light. The pool in front of the church was still spraying water and making gurgling sounds. This was the first sound that Ryan heard after entering the ruins. There is a strange plant planted on both sides of the path, which looks like it is made of jade and emits a soft white light. The style of the church is very peculiar. The door is not flat, but a column. When Ryan approached, the door automatically opened to both sides, revealing the scenery inside. Ryan hesitated and released a trap detection inside. However, just when the spell was about to enter the door, a burst of light film appeared, cancelling out the spell. The light film disappeared after cancelling the spell, leaving only the door still open, as if waiting for Ryan to enter. Ryan sighed and walked along the way. He searched all the houses along the way and found no useful supplies at all. The only thing that is certain is that these metals have a very good guiding effect on magic power. But so what? Ryan couldn't cause any damage even with cutting spells, blasting spells, etc. Although the things are good, they cannot be taken away. What a loss! Ryan said, then took out the bottle of elixir that he had exchanged with Beaver and the others from his pocket and took a sip. In an instant, Ryan seemed to be a different person. He looked at the wide-open door and walked in without hesitation. The interior and exterior of the church have the same color scheme. At first glance, they are all white and gold. There is a circular pattern on the floor, with golden metal inlays on the edges. There is also a golden metal plate in the center, and white marble in the middle. A combination of round and square lights hangs overhead, and the surrounding walls are also decorated with a combination of circles and squares. The whole room looks brilliant and grand, filled with an aura of luxury. Your Excellency, you are here. Just as Ryan was looking around the room, a voice sounded. Chapter 84. After Ryan heard the sound, he did not panic, but looked at the source of the sound. As Ryan expected, a ball of light flew from the darkness, hovered 3 meters in front of Ryan, and projected a figure downwards. Hello, Your Excellency, this is the first time we meet. The projected old man bowed slightly to Ryan and said apologetically. You seem to know me. Ryan was very confused. The old man in front of him spoke in a tone that seemed to know him well, but also seemed to be a stranger to him. When the old man heard Ryan's words, he laughed twice, and then nodded. Before I explain the reason, let me introduce myself first. My name is Theophus Trelawney. The old man touched the white beard hanging down to his chest and said with a smile. Etc. Yes, Sybil Trelawney is my descendant. Theophus had already answered before Ryan could say the words. So are you a seer, or a diviner? Is there any difference? Theophus said with a smile. He waved his hand, and this action made Ryan instantly alert. Relax, I have no ill intentions towards you. Please sit down. Theophus stretched out his hand and made a gesture to sit down. Ryan looked back and found that a seat had been raised behind him. You haven't solved my doubts yet. Ryan sat down. Ha ha ha. Theophus laughed. This has to start a long time ago. I discovered when I was a child that I could see things that would happen in the future. Even though no one believed me when I said it, I knew that it was something that would definitely happen in the future. My family also scorned my remarks, my parents laughed at me, my brothers and sisters teased me, and my friends arraignated me. But none of these could stop fate from coming, and time proved me right. Theophus's expression became ferocious. The betrayal of his relatives was always a thorn in his heart. After that, I was valued by my teacher, who gave me the best training. Gradually, I understood a truth, that is, the so-called prophecy and divination are just a pebble. People want to use this pebble hit the long river of time, hoping to see a glimpse of the future from a few splashing water drops. My talent has brought me endless glory and endless wealth. But I understand that this is not what I want. When I was 97 years old, I had a sense that it's time to make one last prophecy. Having said this, a hint of loneliness flashed across Theophos's face, but soon, his expression turned into enthusiasm. I made a bold decision, that is, I wanted to see what it would be like 3,000 years from now. So I gathered my energy and prepared the materials. A year later, I started my ceremony. The stones I prepared were big enough. The strength used was also great, so the splash was naturally also large. I saw the Cluel encryption spell, and I saw many wonderful ideas. At that moment, I felt that I was the happiest person in the world. Theophus's face became more and more fanatical. But it wasn't until I saw you, 1600 years later, that I discovered that true happiness began to come. Maybe you in the future are aware of my existence, or maybe it's what I said to you at this time that made you remember, but let's not talk about it. I will never forget your figure writing on the desk, let alone what you wrote. It was a city belonging to wizards, a city that could span the entire world. You deliberately gave up your body and let me see it's the entire design drawing. That's really a masterpiece, but it's not mine. Theophus's face became horrified, and his tone became sharp, but to be honest, I am a fortune teller and a prophet. I was 3,000 years ago and you are 3,000 years later. No matter how much I copy, you can't find me. So I used my wealth that no one can calculate, and my supreme authority to start this great project. Theophus opened his hands, seemingly immersed in his beautiful fantasy. After a long time, he came back to his senses. I'm sorry for plagiarizing your wisdom and talking nonsense in front of you. Theophus stood up and bowed to Ryan. As you can see, I failed. Facts have proved that what does not belong to me does not belong to me after all. Theophus's voice was a little low. Ryan listened to his words, but didn't feel anything at all. Maybe this is something that belongs to him, but at least he hasn't drawn the drawing yet. When I realized that it was impossible for me to complete this work, I became depressed. It suddenly dawned on me that this was the shame of my life, so I reunited the craftsmen and wizards who built the city and buried the city. I went down there and sealed the place. After that, I used the rest of my life to do one last divination, and I foresaw your arrival. So I left this image behind, and I feel I have the responsibility to tell you everything clearly. Once again, I'm sorry, even though I don't want to admit it, I still plagiarized your wisdom. Ryan frowned, feeling that the matter might not be as simple as Theophus said. If he drew the drawings himself in the future, that would be okay. What if he drew the drawings based on the city that has already been built? Then how should this be calculated? Please rest assured that I did not copy the drawings completely. To tell you the truth, the style of the entire city actually comes from a race in the starry sky, and my teacher is a member of that race. As for the specifics, I can't tell you. Theophus smiled and revealed a shocking secret. Looking at Ryan's surprised face, he felt extremely satisfied. It was not an easy task to surprise the great wizard who would design such a magnificent building in the future. I know you have a lot of doubts, but I'm sorry, I can't give you the answer. I made some mistakes in my calculations back then, so there is not much energy left. It's time for us to say goodbye. After the energy is exhausted, this place will be completely locked. But don't worry, sir, I will teleport you away from here before then. Theophus paused, looked at Ryan and continued, when you are able, come here again. This city will be my apology to you, and it will also be my last contribution to this world. As soon as he finished speaking, Ryan began to feel that the scene in front of him became blurry. Wait. Ryan instinctively felt that there was something wrong with his last sentence. Chapter 85. Ryan was sitting in the snow at this time, looking at the unfamiliar things around him, and he wanted to curse his mother. This trip to explore the ruins was really an anticlimax. Not only did we not find anything, but we also lost a mouthful of elixir of fortune. By the way, I also had a lot of doubts. Ryan stood up, the sky had turned dark, and snowflakes as big as goose feathers were falling one after another. Everything around is completely white, and even if you want to find some iconic landmarks, you can't find them. Where is this? Ryan looked around and saw the white snow on the ground, the snowflakes still floating in the air. Forget it, never mind, let's make a magic mark first, and then come back when we are strong enough. Ryan gave up the idea of identifying the location and instead input some magic power into the ground to form a rune. This kind of rune minimizes energy consumption through the circuit structure, and even a trace of magic power can last for more than 10 years. After doing all this, Ryan apparat to his forest cabin. Welcome back, Master. When Ryan entered the house, Pudding was already waiting at the door, holding a hot towel in his hand. Master, wipe it. When Pudding saw Ryan coming in, he quickly handed over the towel with both hands, and then hurriedly helped Ryan take off his outer coat. Reen took the hot towel, wiped his face, and breathed a sigh of relief. Pudding took the towel handed over by Ryan and said respectfully, Master, I have prepared dinner. In addition, your friends also received letters today, and I put them on the table in the study. Because this was Pudding's first time home since he came to this house, it took a lot of effort for Pudding to prepare a wonderful dinner today. Pudding looked at Ryan from the side and felt that he probably had nothing to do with him, so he quietly disappeared through the door. This is the basic rule of house elves, which is to serve their master well without being seen by him. Ryan sat on the table and looked at the small but exquisite dishes in front of him. He couldn't help but sigh. No wonder wizards would try their best to get a house elf. This kind of service makes people want to stop. The fireplace in the wall burned with pine wood, emitting a fragrance. Occasionally, it makes a beep sound and explodes with sparks. Ryan ate his meal under the firelight and opened his own Christmas gift, which was delivered by the owls last night. The first thing to open was a magic book from the Shacklebolt family. Under normal circumstances, books collected by this kind of family would not be loaned out to others, let alone given away. But now that Kes was planning to fall out with his family, he didn't care about it anymore. Kes could clearly see the difference between not caring about his family and caring about Ryan. Next came Beaver's gift, which was also a magic book. Ryan guessed that the two of them had discussed it. There are also a bunch of gifts below from some unknown people. They are all pure-blood family members. They may be the people that Kes and Beaver have recently brought closer to the team. Ryan counted and found 8 gifts, which meant that 8 little wizards had joined the team of Max and Beaver, and also meant that the number of the team had officially exceeded double digits. Don't think that 10 people are few. How many wizards are there in the wizarding world of U country? And in such a short period of time, there is no doubt about the ability of Kes and Beaver to win over so many young wizards. Ryan took them all apart, and most of them were small bits and pieces, such as shorthand quills, meditation amulets, and the like. There were also 2 Christmas gifts from Mr. and Mrs. Granger. They were a cloak and a top hat, which seemed to be a set. Put these things away for me, Pudding. Ryan tapped his fingers on the table, and then all the gifts disappeared and were placed where they should be. After packing up his things, Ryan began to concentrate on the matter in front of him. Pudding must have carefully considered Ryan's appetite. After eating all the things in front of him, Ryan was just full. Without waiting for Ryan's instructions, all the plates on the table disappeared, replaced by a steaming pot of fragrant black tea and a piece of cream cake with this strawberry as decoration. After eating, Ryan sat on the sofa to rest, while Pudding looked very hesitant in the corner. It rubbed its big, thick hands and glanced at Ryan from time to time. Pudding, if you have anything to say, just tell me. Ryan noticed Pudding's strange behavior. Although he had Ryan's permission, Pudding was still so hesitant. Ryan was not in a hurry, just waiting for the pudding. Master, this is this year's plantation bill, please take a look at it. As he said that, Pudding handed over a booklet, which recorded in detail the various incomings and outgoings of the plantation. Speaking of which, Ryan also took advantage of him this time. The magic potions in this plantation basically only mature in autumn and winter, and before that, insecticidal potions and special fertilizers need to be spent. But this year, the expenditure was paid for by the Malfoy family, and the final results were enjoyed by Ryan. Your Excellency Malfoy is such a kind man. Ryan simply flipped through the ledger and said. It's no wonder that the three brothers and the Corey family can't wait to grab it. In fact, this is a huge piece of fat meat, and it is roasted meat that can be eaten as soon as you grab it. However, this also shows that the Malfoy family is not short of money. After all, a plantation that is about to be harvested is considered the least, so it can only be said that the rest must be more valuable. That, Master, Pudding also wants to give the Master a gift. Pudding did not leave after handing over the account book, but stood in front of Ryan and said with some anxiety. Hey! Ryan was a little surprised and subconsciously made a sound. Pudding deserves to die. This is all Pudding's fault. Pudding shouldn't have such a big dream. Pudding started banging his head on the ground the moment Ryan made a sound, but there was a thick carpet on the sofa. Pudding felt that he was not being punished, so he ran to the kitchen, picked up a rolling pin and started to hit his head. Head. Pudding. Pudding doesn't want to receive a gift from the Master, but, it's just that the Master is really the best Master in the world. Pudding just wants to express his respect for the Master. After a while, Pudding came out of the kitchen, beating himself with a rolling pin in one hand, slapping himself in the face with the other, kneeling in front of Ryan and crying. Ryan felt like his ears were filled with the scream of Pudding. Bring it here. Also, shut your mouth and stand aside. This is an order. Chapter 86. As title. Chapter 87. Pudding was overjoyed when he heard Ryan say this. He excitedly took out a shabby cloth bag from his pocket and handed it tremblingly to Ryan's hand. This is the galleons that Pudding got from selling some of his materials. It's just a small gift, and I hope the owner likes it. Pudding watched Ryan open the shabby little cloth bag and said with some embarrassment. Ryan glanced at the pudding in surprise, and he naturally understood what selling a few ingredients meant. You have a heart. Ryan sighed sincerely. No matter what the gift is, at least the thought is indelible. Opening the shabby bag, there was a beautiful wooden box inside. Ryan took it out without doubting that he was there. I heard that the owner did not buy his wand from Ollivanders, so I guess the owner does not know about the wand care package launched by Ollivanders. The wand is the life of a wizard, so I think it must be necessary to take good care of the wand regularly. It's very necessary. So I bought this. Pudding looked at Ryan expectantly, exuding an aura of wanting to praise me from the inside out. Ryan opened the box and looked at it carefully, and then responded, I like it very much. Pudding, you are interested. Pudding opened his big mouth. Ryan looked at the house elf in front of him and suddenly felt a little funny. He only treats Pudding as a servant, but Pudding treats himself as his master. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but give Pudding a hug. Pudding's already big eyes opened even wider in an instant, and a layer of mist began to fill them. His ugly face was dull, looking a little funny. But Pudding quickly realized that his master treated him so well, and he only gave him such a small gift, which was completely unworthy of such a hug from his master. Moreover, Pudding is very satisfied if he can be hugged by his master, but he cannot let his master suffer ridicule because of himself. Pudding thought so and immediately struggled to leave Ryan's arms. Master, you cannot allow your master to be looked down upon by others because of Pudding. After Pudding finished speaking, he disappeared in front of Ryan. Ryan naturally understood the meaning of Pudding. In the magical world, house elves are always at the bottom. No one will look down upon a house elf, and similarly, no one will look down on a wizard who is in close contact with house elves. After resting for a while, Ryan went to the study. He needed to recall and summarize today's trip to the ruins, because to be honest, today's operation brought Ryan only endless doubts. The first was the entrance to the ruins. Only now did Ryan recall that the only place at the entrance that contained magic was the wall. It is impossible for the Ministry of Magic to excavate all the original ruins without leaving anything containing magic. Then this is worth pondering. Either the ruins originally excavated have nothing to do with the ruins that Ryan explored this time. Ryan's inference that the original ruins were to protect the ruins this time is untenable. There may also be another possibility, that is, the original ruins were built for cover, but in order to prevent Ryan from entering the wall, it was closed after the Ministry of Magic explored it. Both situations are possible. The first situation is fine, but if it is the second situation, it would be a bit scary, which means that the old guy Theophus still has some contact with the outside world. Thinking more deeply, does the drawing of the ruins and the travel diary that Ryan was able to obtain this time also have Theophus's handwriting in them? And there is still a question mark as to whether the name Theophus is real. Thinking of this, Ryan couldn't help but shudder. Ryan didn't want to mess with this kind of old goblin who had a plan spanning thousands of years. It's not that they can't be beaten, but these people are actually the agents of trouble, and what Ryan hates most is trouble. The other thing is that city. There is no trace of such a magnificent city in its history. You must know that such a huge project can have an impact on the economy of any country, and this was in an era without technology more than 1,000 years ago. You know, people didn't want to see wizards at that time. All wizards were busy hiding themselves and there was no time to build such a thing, even if he was a great prophet. The second is the teacher Theophos mentioned. He made it very clear that his teacher came from the stars and was an extraterrestrial person. But this extraterrestrial person has accepted a native as a disciple. Does he want to cultivate a traitor, or does he really care about the earth? And Theophos's last words, the last contribution to this world. There is a hint of weirdness and ominousness everywhere. Ryan regretted it now. He shouldn't have allowed his curiosity to grow. Curiosity is often linked to trouble. A cup of hot milk quietly appeared on the table, and the rich smell of milk refreshed Ryan, who was deep in thought. Ryan put the cap on the pen in his hand, threw it on the table, picked up the cup of hot milk, and drank it all. Anyway, according to Theophus, the world has not been destroyed after 1,600 years, and he is still planning to build a great city. So why are you so anxious now? After Ryan drank the milk, he placed the cup on the table, and then the cup disappeared lifelessly again. Looking at the various speculations he had written on the table, Ryan smiled and put them away in the drawer of the desk. This drawer contains various information that Ryan is afraid of forgetting but cannot reveal to others. The entire drawer is wrapped in the chlor encryption spell and the self-destruction spell. Once the encryption spell's password is incorrect, the self-destruction spell will immediately destroy all the items inside. After doing all this, Ryan stretched himself, stood up, and went to wash up and go to bed. In the North Pole, two middle-aged wizards wearing robes, cloaks, and pointed hats were trembling in the ice and snow. Damn it, why are there traces of unknown magic being detected here? There is obviously no one here. How can someone cast magic here when even ghosts don't want to come? I have already said that the ministry that old antique should have been replaced a long time ago. Okay, just say a few words and finish your work quickly so I can go back and drink some wine to warm up. There was a period of busy work where Ryan appeared, and finally the two of them looked at each other and shook their heads. Let's go, there are no signs of a wand being used here at all. Chapter 88. Ryan, who was sleeping soundly, had no idea that what he had done had prevented the two Aurors from being reunited with their families at Christmas. In the morning, Ryan got up from bed and looked at the surrounding furnishings. For a moment, he didn't recognize that this was his home. In the past 2 days, Anne has gone out early and returned late. He hasn't had a good look at his home yet. When Ryan came out of his bedroom, a plate with food appeared on the table. There was suddenly more hot water in the tooth cup in the bathroom, and there was toothpaste on the toothbrush. Of course, Ryan is not lazy enough to use magic power to control the toothbrush to move on its own. In other words, for everything in life, Ryan is controlling himself as much as possible not to use magic. For him, this is a way to experience a better life. After all, if everything was done with magic, life would be uninteresting. After Ryan finished washing, he sat at the dining table and enjoyed breakfast. Pays also flew in from the door, bringing today's daily profit with him. Immediately afterwards, a plate of owl rations also appeared in front of Pays. Goo goo. Pace nodded with satisfaction and glanced sideways at Ryan. Ryan responded with an eye roll and opened the newspaper. Now that it is vacation, there are not so many schoolwork and courses, so Ryan can spend every day leisurely. When he opened the newspaper, the first thing Ryan saw was a handsome blonde man smiling at him, showing his white teeth. The photo appears to have some artificial effects, as Lockhart's teeth also sparkle. Mr. Lockhart once again wins the award for the most beautiful smile. After reading it casually, Ryan found that the entire article was promoting Lockhart's books and boasting about Lockhart's legendary experience. After reading it, Ryan took a sip of oatmeal, smacked his lips, and turned to the next page. He thought of Drom, the competitive but extremely kind old man that Favo and Ryan spoke of. It's a pity that Lockhart used the forgetting curse to plagiarize the old man's experience that originally belonged to him. Ryan turned back the page again, sighed, and shook his head. It was all trivial matters. But this is normal. The Ministry of Magic's inaction is recognized by all wizards, especially after Fudge came to power, and they whitewashed the situation in newspapers. But when he turned to the last page, Ryan saw a piece of news that was most likely about him. It was reported that strong apparition fluctuations were detected in a certain area of the Arctic, so the Ministry of Magic sent two ALO to investigate. However, the two Aurors did not find any traces of wand use, so the two Aurors reported the truth to their superiors and believed that the Ministry of Magic's detection tools had failed. The superiors believed that the two ALO did not search carefully because the fluctuations detected by the instrument this time were very large, and there was basically no misjudgment. The reason the two Aurors said there was nothing going on was because they both wanted to go home for Christmas. Of course, what the newspaper reported was not who the mysterious man who appeared in the North Pole was, nor why the Ministry of Magic had to work on Christmas Day, but what the two Aurors later had a fight with their boss in the Ministry of Magic. Struggle matters. The previous things are just the foreshadowing, about 200 to 300 words, and the fighting part behind is what is worth writing about. What everyone cares about is not the mysterious wizard, nor why the Aurors still work on Christmas. Everyone's favorite thing is watching the theater and eating melons. I believe this report will definitely bring joy to many wizards. When Ryan came back to his senses, he found that the bowl of oatmeal in front of him was still warm. It seemed that Pudding had secretly used a heating spell to heat the oatmeal while Ryan was reading the newspaper. Pace had already finished his ration and flew back to the tree. Ryan finished his breakfast quickly, then sat on the sofa, picked up the magic book given by Kess and started reading slowly. The magic knowledge in this magic book is not profound, it can only make people's eyes light up, and it feels like it is still possible. However, Ryan also understood that given the status of X and Beaver, they did not have access to profound knowledge in the family. Everyone knew the consequences of a weak master and a strong servant. But thinking of this, Ryan suddenly remembered the books he asked Pudding to move back from the Gunter family. This is the collection of books owned by the Gunter family, and Ryan believes that he will definitely find something good in it. Pudding! Ryan shouted into the air. Master, what are your orders? Pudding had a dirty towel hanging on his right arm, and there were beads of sweat on his face. It looked like he was wiping something just now. Where did you put the books I asked you to bring back in the library? Ryan closed the book, put it aside, and asked. Pudding bent over, put them all inside. Pudding guarantees that they won't touch them at all. This was indeed the case, because this was the first task that Ryan gave to Pudding, so Pudding completed it more seriously than all previous tasks. Ryan nodded, then waved to Pudding, and Pudding sensibly disappeared in front of Ryan. Arriving at the library, Ryan found that the space here had become extremely huge, and most importantly, Pudding had even moved back the bookshelves in the Gaunt family library. You must know that although magic ironwood is hard and does not deform, its density is also very high. Such an ironwood bookshelf is probably heavier than the books on the shelf. Ryan walked to the back of the library, where there were countless books from the Gaunt family, one of the 28 holy families, and even family secrets. Generally speaking, very rare books are placed together on some unique bookshelves to show their distinction. Soon, Ryan found these books. They were placed on a more exquisite bookshelf. The bookshelf was made of finer materials, inlaid with gold edges and engraved with patterns, making it look extraordinary. Ryan casually took out a book, opened it, and found that it introduced an improved version of the explosion spell, which can leave flames after the explosion for continuous attacks. This is absolutely impossible to find in the Hogwarts library. Ryan stood there and kept flipping through the book. The many experiences in improving spells in the book really made Ryan's eyes shine. Gradually, there was a chair behind Ryan and a small table in front of him, with a pot of hot tea on the table. Ryan sat here and read a book intently until night fell. It was Paige who woke up Ryan, and it brought a Christmas gift for Ryan from the three brothers. It was originally delivered by an owl postman, but Paige intercepted it. What's the gift? Ryan asked curiously, bumping the heavy box in his hand. Chapter 89. Ryan opened the box and found that inside were hand-bound books, and the contents of the books were all handwritten. However, the handwriting was rather illegible and difficult to recognize, but Ryan still recognized some of it. These are all kinds of secrets that the three brothers have learned about, including which families are secretly doing something secretly, which stores have been raided by the Ministry of Magic, etc. Ryan simply turned over 2 pages and put it in the drawer of his study desk. Cuckoo! Paige's dissatisfied voice came from the restaurant, urging Ryan to hurry up and eat. When Ryan arrived at the restaurant, he found Paige standing on the table with a plate in front of his feet, which contained pudding's rations. Goo-goo! Paige called twice more, his eyes full of anxiety. Okay, I'm coming. Ryan said helplessly. At Paige's urging, Ryan sat at the dining table and enjoyed a dinner that was even more delicious than Hogwarts. Ryan spent the entire Christmas holiday like this, exchanging letters with Hermione from time to time. Incidentally, Ryan's home did not support the installation of telephone lines. In fact, when Mr. Granger went to the communications company to inquire, the salesperson even thought Mr. Granger was joking. Because if you want to install a telephone line in Ryan's house, you have to run a branch line to the forest. This is an extremely expensive expense, and the Forest Protection Association may not allow it. No private company would spend such a high price for a trivial user. Of course, that's another matter if you pay enough. Einstein once explained the theory of relativity in a popular way: if a man sits next to a beautiful woman for an hour, it will feel like only 1 minute has passed. But if you let him sit on the stove for 1 minute, then he will feel as if more than an hour has passed. This is the theory of relativity. The same applies to the holidays. Good times are fleeting. On January 10th, it was snowing lightly outside. Mr. Granger, wearing a dark green coat and a black top hat with a gold rim, drove Ryan and Hermione to King's Cross Station in a car. Mrs. Granger was sitting in the passenger seat, feeling a little depressed. After all, no matter which mother, the moment her child is about to leave, is always full of sadness. Moreover, Hermione's vacation this time would only last for 2 weeks. The so-called mother worries when her son travels thousands of miles, nothing more than this. Hermione sat in the back seat and told Ryan about what she had seen at her grandparents' house. Ryan also shared with Hermione some magic tricks he had read in books these days, which made Hermione feel annoyed. The little girl suddenly became unhappy, because while she was having fun in the countryside, Ryan had secretly made a lot of progress behind her back. Although the gap was already huge, this time, the gap became even greater. Okay, kids, we're here. Mr. Granger parked the car and said to Ryan and Hermione, "This damn weather is so damned." When Mrs. Granger heard this, she couldn't help but pat Mr. Granger lightly. Mr. Granger immediately realized that he should not have said bad words in front of the children. "Children, be careful. The weather is really bad. It's snowing heavily outside." Ryan opened the car door, and was greeted by a bone-chilling chill that made Ryan shiver, who had been staying in the warm car. "Ha ha ha, that won't work." Mr. Granger laughed when he saw Ryan's trembling. "Have you brought everything?" Mrs. Granger asked concernedly. However, this time the two of them came back with basically nothing. Only Hermione had a small box, which was now in the hands of Mr. Granger. As a group of people walking in the station, it didn't look special, because there were many families like this in the station. Maybe they were returning from the countryside, or they had just returned from traveling. "Well, we can only send it here," Mr. Granger said as he placed Hermione's small box in front of the wall entering platform 9 3/4. This time, because it was a school holiday, the platform was not open to Muggles. Every time a platform is open to Muggle parents, it means an increase in workload, something the Ministry of Magic does not allow. Mrs. Granger was a little reluctant to let go. She hugged Hermione a little tight. But she knew that the best way for Hermione was to go to Hogwarts. Because there is power there. "Okay, the train is about to leave, so don't waste time." Mr. Granger patted Mrs. Granger on the shoulder, as if to Mrs. Granger, but also to Hermione and Ryan. "Goodbye, Dad, Mum." Hermione gave Mr. Granger and Mrs. Granger a hug respectively, then picked up the box and entered the platform. The little girl was embarrassed to let Ryan help carry the box in front of her parents. "Goodbye, Uncle, Aunt." Ryan also said hello and followed Hermione into the platform. The clock on the platform just made a crisp sound. It was already 10:30. Although there are young wizards who stay in school, they are only a small part. Most of the young wizards choose to go home to reunite with their parents. Therefore, the platform at this moment is not much colder than at the beginning of the semester, and it is also because they have made many friends during the semester. At this time, the little wizards are happily sharing interesting things about the holidays with their friends. Children who grew up in the wizarding world were extremely surprised when they heard Muggle wizards talk about game consoles, computers, etc. Muggle wizards are also very interested in the moving snowman mentioned by wizard-born wizards. Both parties kept describing to each other how wonderful the things they had were, and at the same time they kept asking each other, hoping to get more detailed information. After entering the platform, Ryan and Hermione hurriedly boarded the train, hoping to find a private room. But they were not found. The little wizards were sitting with their friends in twos and threes. "You go and sit with the Paddle sisters. I'll find a seat somewhere." Ryan sighed. They had just visited all the carriages from the front of the car to the parking space. There were only 2 empty seats in the box belonging to the Paddle sisters, and they were all people Hermione knew. As for Ryan, he didn't plan to sit there together. After all, there is an extra Slytherin in the Gryffindor box. "This scene is as strange as you want." Hermione nodded. This was the best thing to do now. "See you tonight." The two greeted each other and left. Ryan finally found a nice private room. It was full of members of Kess and Beaver's small organization, and everyone had given gifts to Ryan at Christmas. There are 2 more updates in the evening. Chapter 90. After arriving at the station, the little wizards walked into Hogwarts by themselves. The carriages pulled by Yeki will only be available when school starts after the summer vacation. However, the interest of the little wizards is obviously not here. Walking with their friends is more in their interest. Although they had spent a whole afternoon together on the train, it was obvious that the little wizards had not yet finished chatting. Professor McGonagall is standing at the school gate waiting for the arrival of the little wizards. When each little wizard enters the gate, she will put a check mark behind the corresponding name on the parchment she carries with her to prevent any little wizard from missing the start of school. Although this kind of thing rarely happened in the history of Hogwarts. When the little wizards arrived at the restaurant, the students who stayed at school for Christmas were already sitting at the dining table. They were also very happy to see their classmates return to school. After all, Hogwarts was indeed a little deserted during the holidays. "Hey, Ryan, nice to meet you, how was your Christmas?" Kess was very enthusiastic and pulled Ryan to his side. Bifur was talking to Wana on the side. Wana is the apple of the eye of the Foley family and must go back for Christmas. The two did not see each other during the entire holiday. In order to prevent their families from knowing, they did not even exchange a letter. As the saying goes, a long separation is better than a new marriage, and this is what it means. "I met with Agent Mock during the holidays," Kess said to Ryan, not worrying whether others could hear him. At this moment, the restaurant was very noisy and everyone was talking, so in order to make their friends hear what they said, the little wizards had to raise their voices. The consequence is that in order to ensure that their friends can hear their voices, other people can only increase their volume, so the restaurant becomes more and more noisy. So a normal speaking voice can be considered a whisper in this environment. "Children, please be quiet." An old but majestic voice passed through the noisy environment and accurately sounded in the ears of every little wizard. Even the little wizard who wanted to share interesting stories with his friends shut up at this moment. This was the greatest white wizard of the 20th century. All the little wizards turned their heads and looked at Professor Dumbledore on the staff bench. "Welcome everyone back to Hogwarts. I hope you have a happy holiday, and of course you will also have a happy semester." Dumbledore said with a smile, "Okay, children, let's start the new semester on your first day, eat to your heart's content." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and many delicacies instantly appeared on the plates on the dining table. The restaurant also returned to its previous bustle. While everyone was eating delicious food, they continued to brag to their friends about what they had done during the holidays. Kess also continued talking to Ryan about the previous topic. "On Christmas Day, I went to see Agent Mock. But to be honest, he lived a miserable life. He couldn't be reunited with his family even on Christmas. It was obvious that he loved his family very much. Kes took a sip of orange juice, then lightly punched Ryan. This kind of person is very easy to use. Your Christmas gift is not bad. So what are you going to do? Ryan just took a piece of barbecue and ate it slowly. On the train this afternoon, he and Hermione had another full meal, and maybe Hermione would have a hard time having an appetite now. Thinking of this, he looked towards the Gryffindor table. Hermione was talking to a girl next to her, and there was only half a piece of roast on her plate. Ryan! Kes shouted from the side. Hey! Reen came back to his senses. You may be needed later to help me rescue the agent's family. Of course, I will pay you. How about 3 bottles of youth potion? The youth potion is a potion that can maintain the user's youthful appearance. Each bottle taken can restore the user's appearance to the way it was a year ago. It can be taken multiple times. Although the youth potion is not a rare potion, it is highly sought after by wizards because it can be used by both men and women and even muggles. Often, as soon as it appears on the market, it will be sold out immediately. And if you want to keep your appearance, you have to keep taking it. After all, your appearance will gradually get older with age. This also results in the annual production of youth potions being only that large, but countless wizards are waiting. Ryan thought for a moment and agreed. Youth potions are a good choice whether you keep them for yourself or give them away. Didn't the agent tell me something? Ryan asked curiously. You know, even when he first wrote to him, the agent gave him a recent piece of information about the Corey family. Of course, by the way, I remembered that the agent asked me to tell you that the Corey family's recent smuggling of death row prisoners from the Muggle world is getting bigger and bigger, and the number is also increasing. After finishing speaking, he looked at Ryan with some doubts. Ryan, did you find out that the Corey family is conducting any dark magic experiments? Even in the noisy restaurant, Kes inadvertently lowered his voice. Experiments on dark magic are prohibited by all Ministry of Magic, and all wizards involved will be arrested if discovered. Historically, it was the so-called black magic experiments that caused everyone to beat up wizards. After the promulgation of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy, there were several dark magic experiments that almost exposed the wizarding world to ordinary people. Afterwards, the Ministry of Magic spent a lot of effort to complete the confidentiality work. Since then, the Ministry of Magic has ordered a complete ban on dark magic experiments. Even schools like Durmstrang in Northern Europe, which blatantly teaches black magic, dare not conduct black magic experiments. Ryan touched his chin and suddenly felt that this was a good excuse. He was still thinking about what excuse he could use to cover up that evil spell, but he didn't expect that there would be another one. Seeing that Ryan didn't speak, Kes seemed to have confirmed what he was thinking. In order to completely ban black magic experiments and to detect those who take risks in time, the Ministry of Magic specifically allowed in the order that once the incident is confirmed to be true, the reporter can obtain half of the property of the person being reported. Kes guessed that Ryan was eyeing half of the Corey family's property. Although the Corey family is not a big family, half of their property is much greater than their personal worth. Ryan looked at Kes's mysterious smile and suddenly realized that Kes might have gone astray. But he didn't mean to explain. He couldn't tell Kes that I was greedy for both the Corey family's wealth and the Corey family's people. Since Kes has misunderstood, let him continue to misunderstand. The dinner ended soon, and the excitement would subside. The little wizards who had been riding the train all day gradually began to feel sleepy under the night. Chapter 91. Time came to early February, which was the day that Ryan and Kes agreed to rescue Mock's family. The study life in the second semester was as ordinary as usual, and Hermione started to make a review plan under the stimulation of Ryan. When Ryan asked, Hermione said, "Everyone's memory is limited, and we need to review the knowledge we have learned from time to time. What's more, we are still making a bet, Ryan, you can't forget it." "Ryan, do you really don't need me to follow you?" Kes looked at Ryan, who was getting ready to go, and asked with some worry. Although he knew that Ryan was very powerful, he could not bring a wand this time because using magic would irritate the traces in the wand. Even if there is no trace, there is still a kind of magic called flashback spell. If a wizard doesn't have his wand, what's the difference between him and a lamb waiting to be slaughtered? Casting spells without a wand was a skill only used by a few powerful wizards, but Kes didn't think Ryan had this kind of ability. Ryan shook his head and refused. This time he planned to apparate directly, and then use the spells from the Book of Laws to quickly resolve the battle and then evacuate, so bringing Kess with him was a burden because he couldn't apparate. Secondly, Ryan didn't intend to let them know that he knew other spells. Even the best of friends have to keep this kind of thing a secret, not to mention that Ryan and Chrisman have only known each other for 3 or 4 months. After saying goodbye to Kess, Ryan came to Snape's office again. "You're a rare visitor. I thought that a certain student who thought he had great magic power already felt that his old dean with a sallow face had low magic power and didn't even want to take a look." Snape grinned, revealing a sarcastic smile. He was still waiting for Ryan's Christmas gift on Halloween. Unexpectedly, he sat by the fireplace all day but didn't even get an owl feather. Ahem. Ryan coughed twice. He didn't expect Snape to be so angry when he first came in. "Professor Snape, I want to go to school." Ryan said straight to the point. "Hey? Let me guess which unlucky guy is going to be unlucky again." Snape looked at Ryan with interest. "Just a personal matter." Yes, private matter," Snape said while writing the approval note to Ryan. After finishing writing, Snape held the approval note in his hand and handed it to Ryan. Just when Ryan was about to take it, Snape retracted his hand. Facing Ryan's doubtful eyes, Snape said grimly, "I think you have too many personal matters. A person's talent does not mean that he is strong. Talent takes time to be realized. And what you lack now is precisely time." After saying that, Snape gave the approval slip to Ryan. "Let's go. If I hear any professor tell me tomorrow that you are absent from class, I won't be able to forgive you." Snape waved his hand and began to drive Ryan away. Without hesitation, Ryan took the approval slip and left Snape's office. Snape's words are all correct, but they may not apply to Ryan. Ryan walked all the way to the school gate and saw 2 stone statues taking a nap. "Why is it you again? Why do you have so many troubles?" Sensing Ryan's arrival, the stone statue on the left woke up from his sleep and asked a little unhappily. In all the years of taking care of Hogwarts, this was the first time that the stone statue saw such a diligent little wizard going out. "Yes, why is it you again?" There are a few more black lines visible to the naked eye on the face of the stone statue on the left. "Okay, kid, give me the professor's approval slip and you can go." The stone statue on the left showed an ugly smile. But Ryan didn't care at all, because he knew that the smile was not for him, but for the stone statue on the right. "Well, it's Snape again. Could you be a relative of Professor Snape? Otherwise, why would he care about you so much and always write you approval notes?" The stone statue on the left looked at the paper in his hand carefully. "Article," said with some curiosity. "Yes, they are Snape's relatives again." The stone statue on the left took a deep breath, and then showed a bright smile to Ryan. "Okay, kid, you go first. I think you have something important to do, right?" Ryan couldn't help but glance at the stone statue on the right, with a somewhat pitiful look in his eyes, and then he disapparated and disappeared through the door. "Hey? Why do I think that boy didn't use a wand?" The stone statue on the left muttered, "Maybe I saw it wrong. Well, after being guarded for so many years and not even a holiday, it seems that I have to talk to Principal Dumbledore. Even muggles know that they cannot blindly squeeze employees, and there are even labor laws to stipulate it, but a white wizard as powerful as Dumbledore doesn't know how to learn. That's right, I don't know how to study." Bang! The stone statue on the left couldn't bear it anymore and punched the stone statue on the right on the head. Ryan suddenly appeared in the basement of a house in a small town. It's not that Ryan likes basements, it's that there is no other place to land in this town. Every inch of land here is surrounded by surveillance, and there are countless surveillance personnel in the town. Although there is nothing special about this town on the surface, in fact more than half of the people here are relatives of special people. They are forced to live here to ensure the loyalty of the special personnel involved. Ryan sensed the outside for a while and found that no one noticed anything strange here, so he began to use magic power to stimulate his facial muscles to modify his face. Half a minute later, Ryan looked at the strange boy in the water mirror in front of him and nodded with satisfaction. He touched his forehead a little, and his original Hogwarts uniform instantly turned into a black robe. "Let me make a scene." Ryan raised his hands and shouted loudly. He has been holding back his strength for a long time but has been unable to use it. The ground cracks. The walls of the basement in front of Ryan suddenly began to retreat to both sides, revealing an upward passage. The rumbling sound immediately attracted the attention of the security personnel. "What happened here? Go and check with a few people." Ryan heard a person calling from a distance. Immediately afterwards, several heavily armed soldiers appeared in Ryan's sight. Damn, it's you-know-who, shoot. The soldiers reacted quickly and pulled the trigger at the first sight of Ryan. However, Ryan was faster. He just waved his hand and all the bullets returned to the same path. If these people had not chosen to shoot, there might have been a slight chance of survival. It took a while, I hope you don't mind. Chapter 92. Ryan did not take away the souls of those warriors. The life and death fight between the two sides just differed in their own positioning. Moreover, those soldiers were not evildoers, except for the British mortars, and Ryan was not so bad that he took away all the souls no matter who they were. This was Ryan's bottom line. If a person doesn't even have a bottom line, then he is no longer a person, but a monster in human skin. The commander over there seemed to have heard something was wrong here, and immediately began to make arrangements. The first is to press the emergency button. This is a button that is only allowed to be used when wizards are attacking. It will instantly send a message to the higher level wizards. The second step is to bomb the place where Ryan is. Wizards are also human beings, and no one can withstand the power of bullets and artillery. But these warriors still don't know the wizard's methods. Apparition, armor spells, etc. can withstand this wave of attacks. With a move of Ryan's hand, a tongue of flame appeared in the air, melting all the flying bullets, and the shell exploded into a flower of death in the air. The commander of the team had never seen such a posture before, and was a little stunned for a moment. Many people in the distance heard the sound of gunfire here, and screams and howls occurred one after another. Then came the sounds of the guards sorting out order. Your Excellency, what are you here for? I think we don't need to get into such a fight. By the way, my name is Simeon. The team commander walked out from behind the bunker with his hands raised, pulling a with a warm smile, he said to Ryan kindly. Of course, all this is just a temporary measure, Simeon is waiting for the arrival of the high-level wizard. He believed that as soon as the high-level wizard arrived, the mysterious man in front of him would be killed. And even if he couldn't defeat the high-level wizards, he also knew that the high-level wizards cooperated with more powerful wizard families. Because several wizards wearing black robes had come here before, and the high-level wizards had not fought, an old wizard wearing red robes came to the rescue. Of course, Simeon also understood that there would be a fee for coming to the rescue. Ryan glanced at him and said nothing. He was also happy not to start a war at this time, because he needed time to determine the location of Mock's family. For a while, both sides fell into silence. Found it. Ryan raised his eyebrows and found that all Mock's relatives were in a house on the edge. The closer to the middle position, the more important it is. It can be seen that it is no longer a matter of 1 or 2 days for the senior management to suspect Mock. Ryan gave Simeon a mocking look before operating to the house where Mork's family was. Although the top management suspected Mock, after all, no one had torn this layer of skin, so there were still things that should be there. Who are you? Please leave here immediately. The guards here are coming soon. Those heavily armed soldiers are not something you can stop. So I advise you to leave here quickly. A young and beautiful girl saw Ryan suddenly appearing, pulled a middle-aged woman behind her, and shouted angrily at Ryan. Ever since they were forced from their original house. After moving here, they understood that Mock's profession was not a good one. The family spends every day muddle along here. They know that when Mork is no longer useful, they may disappear from this world, so they live every day as if they are their last. They thought about being poisoned, euthanized, and shot. But this definitely does not include a mysterious man shrouded in black robes and wearing a pointed hat suddenly appearing in front of him and then killing him. Please don't worry, I'm here to help you. Okay, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Now, hold my hand. Ryan stretched out his hand, wanting to take them away from here by operating together. But they obviously didn't believe this mysterious man who suddenly appeared. Ryan looked a little impatient when he looked at the two women who were still shivering in front of him. Fainted. The two women fainted unprepared, and then were levitated by Ryan using the levitation technique. They took one hand and directly operated to a strange house. This is Kess's property, which was assigned to him by his family when he was 10 years old. This is a family rule, even though Max is the most disliked child in the family. Master Zell, Master Kess has already given instructions, I will take good care of them. An old housekeeper said to Ryan. At his age, if he is assigned to a house where the owner is not valued, there is a high probability that this will be the case for the rest of his life. Ryan nodded in agreement. He now needs to go back and continue to hijack several families, so that at least the higher UPS will not easily guess who has rebelled. Maybe disappearing is a good choice. Thinking of this, Ryan waved his hand and returned to the nameless town. Are you the wizard who is here to cause trouble? This is the joint base of the Corey family and the Moore family. Please leave quickly. A wizard wearing an aqua blue robe saw Ryan suddenly appearing and put his hands behind his back. The soldier gestured and said. Ryan noticed some movements of the soldiers behind the wizard, and immediately realized that they might be searching for which family had disappeared. Seismic wave. Only a bang was heard, and the whole ground shook violently twice. Under the ugly look on the wizard's face, all the houses in the town collapsed. This spell does not cause earthquakes, but uses the energy of earthquakes to shatter walls. Fire is raging. After the wizard on the opposite side stood firm and looked at the ruined town, he angrily took out his wand and cast a spell on Ryan. Ryan was a little disdainful. This kind of spell was useful against ordinary wizards, but for a wizard who could apparate, it was too easy to avoid. However, this was also the reality. Ryan easily came to a collapsed ruin. The wizard glanced at Ryan and frowned. A wizard who could apparate did have a very good ability to dodge ordinary magic, so he shot a red light into the air. The light flew into the air and disappeared. Since one person can't beat him, then let's shake him up. Who doesn't have a few backers behind him? Ryan watched the mage's movements with interest and did not stop him. With the power of a country to support several wizards, he believed that these wizards must have a lot of resources. During this time, and was not idle either. He was constantly operating a way to pull people away from the ruins, and at the same time, he was constantly avoiding attacks from hostile wizards. Chapter 93. In the end, Ryan either rescued or caused more than 30 people to disappear. On the opposite side, 3 wizards were also waiting for rescue. Now, Ryan was surrounded by 4 wizards. They all wore the same style of aqua robes, but they were different in height and appearance. Everyone, be careful, he will disapparate, don't let him escape. The wizard from before shouted loudly to remind his companions. The 3 people who came for support nodded, indicating that they understood. Then 2 of them took out a purple disc, placed it on the ground, and then placed 2 magic crystals on it. An invisible light curtain instantly enveloped the entire town in Ryan's perception. Ryan sensed it a little and found that it was indeed an anti-disapparation spell. Are anti-apparition spells so common these days? Ryan couldn't help but complain that the previous house elf attacks had also started with anti-apparition spells, and now they did it again. Phantom light body. A shadow of himself suddenly appeared next to Ryan, while Ryan's real body was hidden aside. Ryan pointed at the exposed steel bars of the collapsed house in the distance. The exposed steel bars instantly broke in half, and the cut began to become sharp. Then Ryan waved his hand, and the steel bar instantly changed direction and flew towards the 4 wizards in blue. Be careful! The wizard in the middle heard the movement first, loudly reminded his comrades, and quickly cast an iron armor spell on himself. The wizards didn't react as quickly as the wizard, and they didn't have time to put the iron armor spell on themselves, so they had to dodge in a panic. Ryan took advantage of this moment and threw a small ball made of magic power into the air. After the small ball flew into the air, it hovered there, and then continued to emit rays in all directions. These rays come in various colors. The red ones are burns, the blue ones are freezing, the green ones are corrosion, the grey ones are viruses, which can poison people, the black ones are silence, which can interfere with the operation of magic power in the body. For a while, several wizards in blue had to hide behind the bunker. Ryan, on the other hand, sneaked up behind a blue-clothed wizard and planned to make a sneak attack. Ryan had no intention of using violence if there was an easier way. But this time Ryan failed. When Ryan was about 10 meters away from the wizard, a bell on the wizard suddenly rang. Although the magic ball continued to emit light and hit the bunker, making a pop sound, the crisp ringing was still easy to hear. An extra layer of film appeared on the wizard's body in an instant, which was only produced by activating the protective alchemy talisman. Fire blast! A column of flames directly hit the wizard, sending him flying and knocking him down into the ruins beside him. The thin film on his body also disappeared. It seemed that the alchemy item was directly damaged. Rhett! The wizard hiding aside saw the situation here and couldn't help shouting. Rhett didn't care about his injuries at all. He took out a bottle of potion from his pocket and drank it without feeling sick. Ryan's expression changed the moment he saw the potion bottle. He recognized that kind of potion bottle because he also had many in his pocket. That was Snape's exclusive potion bottle, which meant that what Rhett drank was actually a high-grade potion refined by Snape. It's so rich. Ryan couldn't help but sigh. The entire country's resources were concentrated on a few people, and even a pig could take off. But at this time, the other wizards also reacted and kept throwing potion bottles towards Ryan. Explosive potion will produce a violent explosion after being thrown out. It is the wizard's version of a grenade, but this one is much more portable than a grenade. Ryan had no choice but to give up his actions against Rhett temporarily and turned around to avoid photon shock. While dodging, Ryan did not forget to throw a spell at Rhett. Ryan couldn't understand the truth that it would be better to cut off one of his fingers than to injure 10 of them. A beam of light fell from the void, hit the place designated by Ryan, exploded into particles of light, and finally disappeared. Rhett was even more injured and could only continue to take out the potion from his pocket and take it. Several other wizards also began to fire magic at Ryan to cover Rhett. Thunder. Ryan was about to cast a lightning spell directly, but after looking at the exposed steel bars around him, he gave up the idea instantly. It won't be fun to involve yourself then. Explosive impact. A huge fireball exploded in the center of the hiding place of several wizards, and countless small fireballs exploded in all directions. These small fireballs exploded again until they finally turned into a ball of flames that stained the ground and burned continuously. This is a town established by high-level officials specifically to monitor the relatives of agents. There are many equipment and infrastructure here. Even though Ryan destroyed all the houses, the foundation was still intact, so a wizard was busy putting out the fire. The other two were suppressing Ryan, while Rhett was recovering from his injuries. Photon shock. 2 more beams of light fell from the sky. One hit Rhett who was recovering from his injuries, and the other was dodged by the wizard who was putting out the fire. Ryan sensed the location of the anti-apparition device and found that it was carried by 2 wizards. This is quite unusual. Generally, the devices used to arrange the array cannot be moved because the connection between the 2 devices has been fixed. But unusual things have a high probability of being good things. Ryan threw 7 or 8 traps around the perceived location, followed by 2 more magic bombs. The 2 wizards carrying anti-apparition devices were forced to move due to the power of the bomb. This transfer happened to step on Ryan's trap, and he was restrained in place on the spot. Rhett has completely lost his fighting ability. The light pollution caused by the impact of 2 photons caused him temporary blindness. The wizard who was fighting the fire on the other side was constantly hesitating between putting out the fire and saving his comrades, and finally decided to save his comrades. Thunderbolt blast. Since you have already planned to abandon this place to rescue your comrades, there is no need to be afraid of damage. Several blasting spells blasted Ryan's hiding place into danger. Earth wall explosive wind blade. The earthen wall was raised to withstand attacks from the opposite side. Then strong winds blew up, mixed with cyan wind blades. As long as they touched objects, they would explode. The entire ruins were under Ryan's bombardment, with rubble flying everywhere and dust rising upwards. At this point, 3 of the 4 wizards had completely lost their ability to move, and only the wizard who was putting out the fire was able to hide quickly when he saw that the situation was not going well. To stab. 3 sharp thorns suddenly rose from the ground, hanging the wizard. Ryan controlled the power of his spell very well, and none of these 4 people died. Chapter 94. It is absolutely impossible for Ryan to kill these people, because these 4 wizards are renewable resources for Ryan. If you rob them now, they will become rich again in a while, and you can harvest them again. What is this if it is not a renewable resource? Damn it, do you dare to leave your name, so that we can know whose hands it fell into? Rhett said weakly, he was still banking on Ryan's stupidity. Pfft. Ryan couldn't help laughing. Vine bound. Several vines with spikes emerged from the ground and wrapped around Rhett's limbs. The sharp barbs pierced Rhett's skin. Rhett groaned, his expression very painful. It wasn't that Rhett didn't want to shout, it was just that he didn't have much strength at this time. The pain caused by the impact of the 2 photons quickly drained his originally sufficient physical strength, and Snape's disgusting potion greatly depleted his willpower. Rhett was actually relieved at this time. Finally, he no longer had to drink that damn, disgusting potion. Thank God! Rhett's voice was unknown to Ryan at this time, because he took away the traceless stretch bag from Rhett's body. It contains potions refined by Professor Snape, which are much more valuable than gold. Immediately afterwards, Ryan began to grope Rhett's body. The other 3 blue-robed wizards all have some good equipment, and he believes Rhett also has some. Moreover, Rhett suffered a tit-for-tat confrontation from Ryan at the beginning, and then fell to the ground injured. There was no time to trigger the trigger, so most of the alchemy items on him should be intact. Sure enough, Ryan found 3 alchemy items on Rhett, including a pendant, a ring, and a gold coin. There's nothing special about the pendant. It was probably purchased from the protection store in Diagon Alley. It's quite average and not a good thing. It can only be sold second-hand or kept as a gift. There is a blazing flame sealed inside the trigger finger, which seems to be a good choice for lighting cigarettes. Moreover, the size was too big, and it was too loose for Ryan to put on. But this wrench contains some magic crystal powder, and the user can use the magic power in the powder to activate the spell, which means that this wrench can also be used by ordinary people. Save it for Mr. Granger. Ryan thought so and put it in his pocket. Ryan didn't understand the function of that gold coin, and he found out later using the detection technique. This gold coin has certain divination properties. The engraved side means yes and correct, and the reverse side means no and wrong. It can only be used once a day. Even though there are huge restrictions and the answer is so vague, it cannot be denied that among these 3 items, this gold coin is the most valuable. Mr. Rhett, right? Ryan looked at Rhett. Although the words he spoke were questions, the meaning was very certain. The stuff is pretty good, please prepare more proactively next time. Ryan said, walking towards the other wizards. By the time Ryan returned to Hogwarts, it was just time for lunch. After enjoying a delicious lunch in the restaurant, Ryan was pulled away by Kes. Here, Ryan, this is for you. Kes held a small grey bag and hid in the corner and said to Ryan. Ryan took it and opened it to see that it was Ryan's reward this time, 3 bottles of youth potion. Why are you hiding here? It feels like there is some shady deal. Ryan put the potion away and said involuntarily. Kes coughed twice and said with some embarrassment, this was originally reserved for you, but then Beaver got the news from somewhere, and kept asking me to give him the potion so that he could go to please his Wana. Maybe Beaver will bother you in a few days, and by then you will feel that even the flies around you are more pleasing to the eye than Beaver. Isn't there any reaction from your family to such a big move? Ryan was a little curious. Kes shook his head, perhaps they think that our group can't make much trouble, or they are happy to see us make a difference, but at least there is no action at the moment. Ryan nodded and said nothing further. This was a private matter between Kes and Beaver, and he couldn't say much. He could only ask about the situation occasionally to express his concern. Okay, remember to keep an eye on the potion. If Beaver asks you to go there, don't say I didn't give it to you. Kes patted Ryan on the shoulder and said with a smile, then turned and left. Ever since Beaver established his relationship with Wana, he seemed to have changed into a different person. He started to become better and more aggressive. When Ryan heard what Kes said, he couldn't help but shook his head, then turned around and returned to his dormitory. This dormitory is now in the shape of a toilet. In addition to the bedroom, Malfoy's bed was transformed into a potion refining room by Ryan. After all, he has a magic potion plantation under his name. The cost of medicinal materials has been greatly reduced for Ryan, and he won't feel too distressed when using it to practice potions. In addition, Ryan will also dismantle some collected alchemical items here, analyze their internal structure and production techniques, and then use them in his own works. After Ryan entered the dormitory, he took out the movable anti-apparition spell device seized from the blue-robed wizard and placed it on the operating table. These are 2 stone slab-like items, with only 2 small holes left on them for placing magic crystals, and there are no gaps in the rest. Ryan picked it up, looked at it carefully for a long time, and finally put it down helplessly. There is no trace of artificiality, it seems to be naturally formed. The edges of the 2 stone slabs are extremely consistent. When put together, you will find that they are an elongated octagon. But he couldn't find a place to start, and Ryan didn't dare to start where the magic crystal was placed. After all, if it was broken, it would be completely gone. Next, Ryan continued to process several more common alchemical items. For these common items, Ryan was not so gentle, and basically dismantled them regardless of the consequences. In this way, Ryan spent another whole afternoon on this matter. Ryan, Professor Snape wants you to go to his office. After dinner, a young Slytherin wizard stopped Ryan and said to him. After saying that, the little wizard glanced at Hermione, turned around and left. Why is Professor Snape looking for you? You didn't do anything extraordinary when you left school today, and you implicated Professor Snape, who gave you the approval note. Hermione looked confused, but her intuition was extremely accurate. Chapter 95. After saying goodbye to Hermione, Ryan went directly to Snape's office. Dong dong. Ryan knocked on the door, and Snape's voice soon came from inside. Come in. Ryan pushed the door open and walked in. Snape was handling potions on the console. A refreshing aroma filled Snape's office. You're here. Snape glanced at Ryan from the corner of his eye and said coldly. Snape did not stop what he was doing because of Ryan's arrival. 3 minutes later, Snape squeezed out the juice from the potion in his hand and sealed the small bottle containing the juice. The aroma in the entire room immediately disappeared. Did you go out and cause big trouble today? Snape walked to the sink and washed his hands, walked behind the desk and sat down, and said slowly. No. Ryan replied without hesitation. The Aurors in the Ministry of Magic who are on vacation were notified today that their vacation was cancelled, and according to the Muggle government, a mysterious man attacked a small town in the north this morning. And you just took my badge this morning. It's hard not to think about it when I'm out of school. Snape picked up his quill and began to correct his homework. I didn't call you here to blame you, but I wanted to tell you that sometimes, a bridge is often destroyed on a piece of rotten wood. I believe that in a few days Malfoy will know the news about you going out today. And maybe I'll use some excuse to check your wand. Have you ever heard of the flashback spell? Snape frowned, looked at an assignment and shook his head, then put a big D on it, then turned to another assignment, read the beginning, and then put a big D on it. In general, as long as your wand has cast spells, they can be detected with the flashback spell, so don't take any chances. If you are really found out, Professor Dumbledore will not be able to protect you, Snape said. The 2 assignments were taken out separately and set aside, and then the next assignment was marked with an O. Hermione Granger. Ryan glanced furtively. So Ryan immediately knew who the 2 previous assignments were. If you have nothing else to do, please leave. The stench on your body will destroy the quality of my moon spirit grass juice. Snape said suddenly after finishing correcting the next assignment. The juice of moon grass is the bottle that Snape squeezed just now. Ryan nodded and didn't say anything. He just kept Snape's words in mind. He heard clearly that Snape had said that Malfoy might come to trouble him. As for Snape saying that Malfoy would know about his going out, Ryan didn't doubt that Snape was the one who tipped him off. Because it was unnecessary, telling Malfoy about Ryan would not do Snape any good. Ryan guessed that it was probably because of Malfoy's status as school director. The identity of the school director must have some effect, otherwise there would definitely not be so many pure-blood families wanting a seat on the school director. Maybe they have certain school authority. After all, Ryan needs to pass through the school gate when he leaves the school, and the 2 stone statues at the school gate obviously existed when the school was founded. Ryan thought as he walked, and soon came to the Slytherin common room. However, Ryan didn't care at all about this matter. He had long known that the Ministry of Magic would be aware of it. If the Ministry of Magic hadn't noticed such a big movement, Ryan felt that Fudge probably thought his talents were insignificant and didn't want to work anymore. In order to cope with the current situation, Ryan deliberately went without a wand. However, Snape was still wrong. Early the next morning, Malfoy and 2 Aurors strutted into Hogwarts under the watchful eyes of all the young wizards. I don't think it's necessary, Lucius. A first-year wizard attacked and destroyed a Muggle town. The current Ministry of Magic is so incompetent that they believe such lies. Dumbledore sat behind the table, his eyes were a little sharp. Lucius came to Hogwarts again and again to trouble a young wizard, which made Dumbledore very unhappy. But Lucius didn't think so. He still remembered Ryan's face when he took away an extra plantation from him that day. He, Lucius, had never fallen so hard on such a small baby in his life. This time, he must let Ryan know what the 28 pure-blooded sacred tribes are. No, we are just checking his wand. You must know that according to the Reasonable Restraint of Minor Wizards Act, minor wizards have no right to cast spells outside of school. We are just doing it as a matter of routine. Lucius smiled, he said, completely ignoring Dumbledore's sharp eyes. This time, he had done enough homework, and he was accompanied by 2 Aurors, which had a different meaning. He came here to represent the Ministry of Magic. So no matter how reluctant Dumbledore was, he couldn't be too partial to Ryan. Okay, Albus, you see, these two and I are very pressed for time, and we have been in school for such a long time, which has caused a lot of panic to the students, so isn't it time to call the wizard? Please rest assured that these two are experienced aurors and there will never be any misjudgment. That's weird. Lucius secretly added 2 words in his mind. He had already planned it, and when the time comes, as long as this kid used a magic spell yesterday, he would do it harshly. He still doesn't believe it. Yesterday he went out and there was no magic at all. Dumbledore took a deep look at Lucius and asked Fawkes to go find Ryan. He also knew that Lucius was taking the opportunity to retaliate, but there was nothing he could do about it. Lucius's excuse was just and fair, and there was no fault in it. Soon, Ryan arrived at the principal's office. "Oh my God, it's been so long since I last saw you. I feel like you've grown taller." When he saw Ryan, Lucius was very enthusiastic and stepped forward to talk to Ryan. "Since I have grown taller, it means that you have grown older again, Lord Lucius." Ryan shot back without thinking. "Yes, people will always grow old, but some people can't help but recall the stupid things they have done when they get older, because they have ruined their lives because of these things. I hope you are not like this stupid man," Lucius said to Ryan with a smile. "Lord Lucius, this is not what you asked me to come here to say, right? Now that I have finished listening, can I leave?" "Of course not. A small town in the Muggle world was attacked by wizards yesterday, and you happened to be out yesterday, so the Ministry of Magic suspects that you are most likely related to what happened yesterday." Lucius paused and continued, "Of course, the Ministry of Magic will not wrongly accuse a good person, so we need to check your wand to prove your innocence." Chapter 96. Dumbledore frowned as he listened to Malfoy's words. He felt that Malfoy was also the patriarch of the Malfoy family, so why did he keep holding on to Ryan for such a trivial matter as a duel with Malfoy? However, Dumbledore had no idea that Ryan would later defraud Malfoy of a plantation in a house elf, which was enough to support the wealth of a small wizarding family. "What are you waiting for? Take out your wand quickly, or are you feeling guilty, kid?" Malfoy continued to be aggressive. "Well, Mr. Malfoy, since you ask so, there is no way I can refuse," Ryan said with a smile. No. You misunderstood. It's not that I want to check, but the Ministry of Magic is very concerned about the growth of little wizards. I heard that you went out yesterday, so I came to check your wand. You must know that the Ministry of Magic is very concerned about the growth of little wizards. I have always been concerned about the growth of little wizards, and as a senior official, I am no exception. Malfoy heard the meaning of Ryan's words and said quickly, but to be honest, Ryan did not expect that his words had this meaning. But seeing Malfoy's cautious look, Ryan couldn't help but feel a little funny. Although he found it funny, Ryan still handed over his wand. Malfoy touched the wand in his hand, looking a little excited. He didn't believe that Ryan's magic was useless when he went out yesterday. Otherwise, how far would he have gone in such a short time? You can't just take the approval slip and spend half a day walking around the school. Malfoy handed the wand to the Auror next to him, then opened his hand to Dumbledore, saying that he would not cast the flashback spell himself to avoid suspicion. Dumbledore nodded secretly. He was really afraid that Malfoy would do it himself regardless of his face. Let the people from the Ministry of Magic take action now. Even if any problems are discovered by then, at least I can use a little face to make them a big problem and make it a trivial matter. Dumbledore believed that these two Aurors must have been bribed by Malfoy, but the words of the greatest white wizard alive still carried some weight. After the two wizards were busy for a while, they shook their heads at Malfoy and Dumbledore. "Wait, what do you mean?" Malfoy asked hurriedly, not believing it. "Sorry, Mr. Malfoy, it seems that this gentleman did not violate the regulations, because after our testing, we found that this gentleman did not cast any magic yesterday." The Auror seemed to feel that his words did not mean anything. "Understanding," he added, "all morning. Are you sure you're not kidding me?" Malfoy didn't believe his ears. He glanced at Ryan in disbelief. Could it be that this kid had really been playing around Hogwarts all morning? Is he mentally ill? Malfoy thought. For a moment, Malfoy was suddenly confused. He can't be able to cast spells without a wand, right? A terrible thought emerged in Malfoy's mind, but he quickly suppressed it. Because in Malfoy's opinion, this is impossible. If a first-year wizard can cast spells without a wand, wouldn't all his years of practicing magic be fed to the dog? So Malfoy killed this idea immediately. "Lord Malfoy, I assure you as an Auror that everything I say is true. Sheffield can also prove it, right, Sheffield? One of the Aurors looked at the other named Auror, he said it with confidence. The Auror named Sheffield nodded to Malfoy. Okay, Lucius, since you haven't found anything, stop your unreasonable troubles. I think as a senior executive of the Ministry of Magic, you should spend your energy on dealing with major issues in the magical world, rather than these trivial matters. Dumbledore looked at Malfoy and said with a smile on his lips. Mr. Headmaster, this is related to the future of a young wizard. This is a major matter for the Ministry of Magic. Malfoy said. Dumbledore gave him a blank look on the spot. Haha. Malfoy laughed dryly. Today's events made him look like a clown. Well, it's the best thing to have never released magic. You know, the Ministry of Magic cares most about the young wizards. Developed. After Lucius finished his words, he left the principal's office with the two Aurors. So the little wizards at Hogwarts saw the scene of Lucius angrily leaving Hogwarts with the two Aurors. Even Draco didn't dare to step forward to say hello to his father, and took his little followers Goyle and Carab to hide aside. Snape stood in the corner, looked at Lucius's leaving figure, and shook his head. As Ryan became stronger and stronger, he believed that it was simply impossible for Lucius to get benefits from Ryan. However, most students were still very happy. The reputation of the Malfoy family in the wizarding world was not very good, and Draco was used to being arrogant and domineering in school. Naturally, not many young wizards had a good impression of the Malfoy family. Old Malfoy must be up to no good when he comes to you, but I know from the look on his face that he didn't succeed. After lunch, Hermione said to Ryan while reading a book in the library. Everyone is saying that their family is bad. Hermione looked around, then lowered her head and whispered to Ryan, I think when everyone is saying that a person is bad, it is enough to explain that people do have problems. Don't make such an arbitrary decision. Just because everyone thinks it doesn't mean it's necessarily correct. Ryan rejected Hermione's point of view, but then changed the subject, although I also think the Malfoy family is a bit bad. You think so too? Hermione asked doubtfully. He thought all Slytherins would think the Malfoy family was good. Why do you say that? Ryan was a little curious. Don't you know yet? What do you know? I heard that Malfoy and Weasley had a fight over this matter, just in the morning. Hermione sighed, with Malfoy's little followers Goyle and Crabbe, Weasley's friend Beau, everyone was involved. I heard that Malfoy was beaten so much that he was hospitalized. He screamed terribly. Now Gryffindor will have to deduct a lot of points again. The points I have gained this semester are not as many as they have deducted. Ryan listened with a smile. Why are you laughing? Slytherins are not much better. I heard that Professor McGonagall was very angry this time and deducted 10 points from each person. Calculated based on the number of people, you Slytherins deducted more points. But Mr. Potter was scolded badly, not because of the fight, but because of his homework. I've been hiking all day today and my back is sore. Chapter 97. What happened to Mr. Savior? Ryan suddenly thought of the 2 assignments he saw in Snape's office last night. It turned out that Ryan's guess was correct, that was Ron and Harry's homework. I really don't understand why there are people who can't even do such a simple potions class homework. They only need to come to the library and check out a few books to write a beautiful homework. Hermione turned another page. The deeds of Weasley and Potter now made it difficult for her to have any emotional fluctuations, even if it meant deducting points. Not because of anything else, but because there are too many of these things and I have become numb to it. What happened to their homework? Ryan didn't even look up. I heard that their brains have become the same again, and Professor McGonagall seems to have warned Potter before that if this happens again, he will be revoked as a Gryffindor Quidditch player. So we won't be able to see Mr. Porter's style in the 2 days of competition? Ryan asked with some gloating. Hermione turned another page, turned to look at Ryan and said, we are here to study. Although this is a magic school, it is still a school in the final analysis. Since we are students, our task is to study. Hermione kept preaching, seemingly venting her dissatisfaction with Potter and Weasley. But it's not the little girl's fault, but from the perspective of a top student like Hermione, isn't a trivial matter like homework easy to do? Especially the kind of homework where you can find the answer just by flipping through the book. It is raining lightly outside and the weather is gloomy. There is a little wizard rising and falling on the Quidditch pitch in the distance. This is... Mr. Potter was having a bad day today because Professor McGonagall called him over to talk. He sat on the broom and watched the team members below training hard, a little absent-mindedly. Harry, what are you thinking about? I've seen the golden snitch sneak away from you several times. This is not like your usual level. Seeing Harry's frequent defeats, Wood couldn't help but stepped forward and asked. Sorry, Wood, I think I may never be able to play Quidditch with you again. Harry hesitated for a long time, and finally felt like telling the truth. What? You said you are going to be suspended by Professor McGonagall. Fred shouted in surprise. Is it because of homework? George also said in surprise. Can't you just go to the library and browse the books to do that kind of thing? Fred and George looked at each other and said in unison. Harry was a little embarrassed. In fact, he and Ron had agreed to do these homework together as a partnership. But you still have to practice your game well first. I heard that the referee of this game is Snape. Wood pursed his lips and dropped a shocking news. What? George screamed, his body lost control of his balance for a moment, and he fell down. George! Wood screamed. Harry's matter hadn't been resolved yet, and George fell down again, and Wood felt that he was really miserable. Fortunately, George was not injured and only chewed 2 mouthfuls of dirt. The rest of the players flew down and landed on the ground. They were also afraid that Wood would throw out some shocking news again, in case they were frightened and fell down. Does Snape know how to play Quidditch? I don't think he even knows the rules of Quidditch. George said, I'm sure he will deduct points from Gryffindor randomly. Then you should abide by the rules, don't swing around in the sky, and don't make small moves. Before anyone else could speak, Wood immediately picked up. And you, Fred, what I said to George applies to you too. Oh my God, I'm the one who follows the rules the most. Fred spread his hands, looking a little innocent. That's best. Wood nodded, then turned to look at Harry. Harry, don't worry, I will discuss this matter with Professor McGonagall. Before that, I'd better practice the ball first. Wood patted Harry on the shoulder. Okay, guys, let's get moving and rehearse the tactics we just used. After calming everyone down, Wood clapped his hands and said loudly. With dark clouds and heavy rain, the players once again mounted their broomsticks and flew into the sky. At this time, Ryan and Hermione had just come out of the library. You shouldn't treat homework so carelessly. This is a way to test whether we have truly mastered the knowledge we have learned in class. Hermione kept complaining. The reason was that Ryan had scrawled his homework in the library. I think you should at least complete everything you are doing seriously, instead of scribbling it when you see it is not important. Hermione continued. Okay, I understand. Ryan shrugged. He felt that Hermione's second sentence was right. When Hermione saw that Ryan seemed to have known about it, she stopped dwelling on the matter. Once is a reminder, twice is a concern, and saying too much is annoying. Wait, that's Neville. As soon as she reached the stairs, Hermione saw Neville jumping up from downstairs. It's you, Hermione. Neville said a little frustrated, and then he noticed Ryan next to Hermione. The Slytherin emblem on Ryan's body made Neville a little scared. Hello, Zell, Neville said softly, too quietly to be heard. Hermione noticed that Neville's legs were pressed together. Coupled with Neville's previous behavior of jumping up the stairs, the little girl couldn't help but ask, what's going on with you? Neville hesitated a little. He glanced at Ryan secretly and said with some lack of confidence, it's Malfoy. He said he wanted to find someone to practice spells with. Hermione lifted Neville's spell while he was talking. Thank you, Hermione. Neville's words were sincere. Go tell Professor McGonagall that Malfoy's behavior is too bad. Hermione was a little angry, her eyebrows raised. Neville didn't listen to what Hermione said. He turned around and walked up slowly, saying, forget it, Hermione, Gryffindor has enough troubles already, I don't want to cause any more trouble. Hermione opened her mouth, but no words came out. After Neville disappeared up the stairs, Hermione turned to Ryan and said, this is so unreasonable. These pure-blood behaviors are really disgusting. It's a simple truth. In the magical world, this is the only situation if you don't have strength. Ryan said with a smile, but Mr. Longbottom is not without strength, but without confidence. Chapter 98. It's Quidditch Day. On this day, all the little wizards at Hogwarts came to the Quidditch pitch to watch the game. This is an extremely crucial game. If Gryffindor can win, it will have a chance to add some trouble to Slytherin in the House Cup. As for Gryffindor winning the House Cup, not many young wizards would think so at this time. Since Hermione was not involved with Ron and Harry, no one would watch them or check their homework. So far, Weasley and Potter are already poor students in everyone's eyes, and their house points have been deducted a lot by them. Harry Potter can at least win back a lot of goodwill through Quidditch, but Ron is really disliked by many people. Soon, Snape's sallow face without any expression appeared on the field. The originally lively atmosphere in the stands quickly cooled down. The Gryffindor and Hufflepuff Quidditch teams lined up on either side of the pitch, waiting for Snape to kick off. "I will be watching your every move, so don't think about playing tricks on me. Of course, if you think your head is smart enough and you think you can withstand the pain after being discovered by me, it's a bitter pill, so there's no harm in you trying it." Before kickoff, Snape stared at Harry Potter and said grimly. Snape planned to teach Mr. Potter a lesson today. On the one hand, it was to avenge his childhood, and on the other hand, he wanted to use this method to make Mr. Potter focus on studying. What's the point of playing Quidditch well? Snape was filled with disdain. As the quaffle in Snape's hand lifted into the air, the Quidditch match officially began. Ryan and Hermione found a relatively remote corner. It was a bit awkward for them to stand together in the stands. "By the way, how is your magic practice going now?" Ryan asked suddenly while watching the game. "Occlumency? It's still not very good. It can only be used for 1 hour at a time. Any more will cause a headache." Hermione was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that Ryan would ask this question, but she still answered truthfully. Ryan didn't actually mean this, but wanted to ask Hermione how many spells she had mastered now. "Actually, I want to ask how strong you are now." "Ah." Hermione didn't react. All the first and second graders have mastered the spells, and there are still a few third graders who are practicing. Ryan nodded. This progress is quite impressive among young wizards. Of course, it cannot be compared with top wizards such as Dumbledore and Grindelwald. This is the pass for the defense circle in front of my house. Here it is for you. Ryan took out an exquisite packaging box and handed it to Hermione. The packaging is so good. What day is today? Humph, are you so skilled? Hermione raised her head and looked at Ryan a little arrogantly, but the raised corners of her mouth could easily read the little girl's thoughts. "No, it's just that I plan to go out for a walk during the summer vacation." "Where are we going again?" Hermione was a little unhappy. "I've learned so much, it's okay not to use it. I plan to go out and see it during the summer vacation. I will write to you every day." Ryan understands the principle of reading thousands of books and traveling thousands of miles. Moreover, it is impossible to create anything good by working behind closed doors. Hermione nodded and said nothing. She knew what Ryan said was right, but she instinctively didn't want Ryan to go out. "Why don't you open it and take a look?" Seeing Hermione holding the box, Ryan asked. "Yes." Hermione nodded. The little girl was not very interested at this time. But she still listened to Ryan and opened the box. Inside the box is a silver pendant, and the pendant is shining with a little light. This is a defensive alchemy item that Ryan recently made. The material is Kono silver obtained from Nocturne Alley through the Three Brothers. Kono silver is not silver, but a magical metal similar to silver. It has extremely strong magical conductivity and is widely used in fields such as construction and alchemical items. Therefore, it is listed as contraband by the Ministry of Magic of various countries. But in the world of capital, as long as you have money, you can get everything. Such a pendant costs almost 30 galleons in Kono silver alone, not counting the magic crystal powder and the labor involved in carving the runes. It's so beautiful. Hermione fell in love with the pendant the first time she saw it. No woman can resist something shiny, let alone a magic pendant. In addition to the passage permission, I also solidified an iron armor spell, an occlumency, and a passive disembodiment. As for the location of the disembodiment, I set it at the door of my house. If it is triggered one day, when the time comes, just hide in there, no wizard can break it there. Ryan said with a smile. Just brag, Professor Dumbledore. Hermione picked up the pendant and hung it around her neck. How about it? Does it look good? Of course, beautiful lady, your beauty is like the stars in the sky. When you shine, the moonlight also dodges for you. Bah! Hermione blushed and spat at Ryan. Suddenly, bursts of cheers came from the distance, as if they were about to overthrow the world. What's going on? Hermione asked with confusion on her face. Could it be a goal? No, that's not right. There won't be such loud cheers when a goal is scored. Hermione thought. It seems the game is over. Ryan looked into the distance and said softly. What? Hermione was a little confused, how long it had been. Yes, the game ended in 5 minutes, and I saw the scoreboard directly showing that Gryffindor had won. Oh my god! Hermione covered her mouth in surprise. This is really... The little girl was so excited that she was speechless. Oh my god, this really makes history. The little girl exclaimed, Lien, do you know that there has never been a Quidditch match in history that ended so quickly? This will definitely go down in history. Mr. Potter's Quidditch talent is really astonishing. Ryan Bugen said with emotion. But he was not envious, now he was strong enough to kill 10 Harry Potters. Even if Dumbledore comes forward, Ryan is confident that he will be killed with a large-scale destruction spell. Everyone has his own specialties. Hermione said happily. Because of the victory in this game, she saw the hope of competing for the Academy Cup. Okay, we should go back. I believe there will be a grand celebration party in Gryffindor today. The little wizards in the distance also started to disperse. Chapter 99. Professor McGonagall was very happy that Harry Potter found the golden snitch in 5 minutes, so he was relieved when Wood came to plead for Harry. However, Professor McGonagall also made a request. If Harry fails one of the final exams, Harry must withdraw from the Quidditch team in the next school year until his grades meet the standards. Oh my gosh, Wood, thank you so much. When he heard that he didn't have to leave his beloved team, Harry jumped up excitedly and gave Wood a big hug. This is a small matter, Harry. Professor McGonagall is an avid Quidditch enthusiast. She will not look at such an outstanding Quidditch player and think that he has gone astray. Wood patted Harry on the back, but your grades really need to be improved. You must know that Quidditch is not a simple sport. It places high demands on wizards. After all, there have been more than 700 violations in Quidditch, and it was in the same game. You can't win this game without any skills, Harry. Wood said jokingly. But who would have expected that Harry and Ron actually nodded thoughtfully? Ahem, no matter what, Harry, you have to at least study hard next time. No matter what, you can't fail the final exam, understand? This is Professor McGonagall's bottom line. Although your Quidditch talent is its very high, but to be honest, Professor McGonagall is a teacher after all, and she must be responsible for every student. Wood talked with Harry for a long time, during which time he also formulated Harry's study plan, which even included tutoring from several senior students. I dare you, Gryffindor. Over the years, you are the only one who has received such honor. Ron was a little envious. His grades were very poor, but no one cared about him and helped him make up lessons. God, Ron, it would be great if learning was as easy as Quidditch. Harry couldn't help complaining. He knew he should study hard, but every time he saw a book, he felt like he didn't know anything. Ron didn't speak. He felt that his good friend had broken his heart at this moment. He looked a little lost, so lost that Harry couldn't figure it out. Time flew by day by day. In addition to receiving tutoring every day, Harry also met a Norwegian ridgeback named Norbert in Hagrid's house. But the growth rate of dragons obviously exceeded everyone's expectations, and Hagrid's small house could no longer accommodate such a large young dragon. So they decided to send the dragon away one night, but Malfoy discovered it and reported it to Filch. When Ryan got the news from other little wizards, he realized that the time had come. Unicorn blood, or a whole unicorn, is a scarce material in the entire magical world. No wizard dares to openly kill a unicorn, and unicorns are naturally powerful and have a very powerful restraint on black magic. As a result, it would be impossible to kill a unicorn using only white magic. But now there was a whole unicorn in front of Ryan. If God does not give it, he will suffer the consequences. Ryan stood on the observatory, looking at the backs of Potter, Weasley, and Malfoy as they followed Hagrid into the Forbidden Forest, and smiled. He pulled out of his pocket a mask, an alchemical item he had crafted during this time to protect himself from magical prying eyes. This item is enough to ensure Ryan's confidentiality. As for the body shape, it is natural to use magical stimulation to increase the height. Originally, Ryan didn't want to hide it, because everyone knew about the existence of Polyjuice Potion in the magic world. Moreover, there was still Ryan sleeping in the Slytherin dormitory at this time, so Ryan was not afraid of being investigated at all. But Ryan thought about it and realized that if something happened to him again and again, Dumbledore might be suspicious of him. And don't forget, there is a Malfoy who is eyeing Ryan. Watching Hagrid and his entourage enter the Forbidden Forest, Ryan also jumped down from the observatory, then flew into the Forbidden Forest in the distance invisibly. Okay, you divide into teams. One person will follow me this way, and the other two will go that way. Hagrid held Yaya's dog leash in his right hand, and pointed to his left side with his left hand first, and then pointed to his right. I'll come with you, Hagrid. Harry and Ron said in unison. No, we must be divided into two teams. One team will take too long, which may affect your rest. You must know that you are growing up now, and it is not good to sleep poorly. Hagrid stroked his hand. He said while stroking his thick beard. Don't worry. I patrol here regularly. There won't be any dangerous magical animals. And your mission is to find the bastard who hurt the unicorn. If you find it, just send a red signal and I will rush over. High-Ge was afraid that they would worry, so he continued. Yaya also shouted twice from the side, as if he wanted to show his majesty. Okay, Ron and I will go on one side and Harry and Malfoy will go on the other side. Remember, don't put the flares randomly, but don't save them in case of emergency. Hagrid frowned involuntarily when he mentioned Malfoy. Then I want Fang. Malfoy said hurriedly, looking at Fang's sharp teeth. Hagrid nodded, but he still warned, I can tell you, Yaya is a complete coward, you have to think clearly. Malfoy looked at Fang's fierce look and nodded. Okay, we have to hurry up. The longer the time drags on, the worse the injured unicorn's condition will be. Harry opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Hagrid. 4 people and 1 dog split into 2 teams before a fork in the road and headed towards the dark Forbidden Forest. Ryan stood on the tree and witnessed all this, but he was shrouded in a black cloak and was not discovered under the cover of the night. He jumped down from the tree and squatted in front of the pool of silver blood on the ground. Ryan stared at the blood for a long time before taking out a small glass jar from his waist. The blood on the ground flew up out of thin air, and then dripped into the jar in Ryan's hand drop by drop. After the collection was completed, Ryan stood up. He looked left and right, and without thinking, chose the path Potter took. After all, only by following Potter can we find the unicorn. The Forbidden Forest is very eerie at night, and the strange-shaped trees around it look like demons and demons with their teeth and claws snarling, adding to the weirdness of the Forbidden Forest. Potter and Malfoy walked in front, with Ryan behind. Follow step by step. Until Ryan saw the silver blood hanging on the leaves. In the future, we will update at fixed times, 20:05 and 23:05 in the evening. If there are additional updates, they will be updated at 12:05 noon. Chapter 100. Walking in the dark forest, Malfoy held a lamp in his hand and kept observing his surroundings. Although he was holding Fang, everything around him was constantly oppressing Malfoy's mind, so he decided to do something to relieve it. Potter, I heard that you are going to be suspended? God, this is really bad, but I heard that the reason for your suspension is even more pitiful. There are people who have such poor grades that they have to be watched by professors. This really makes me eye-opener. Malfoy grinned. What could be more relaxing than mocking Potter? Oh, really? It seems that the so-called purebloods can only complain to the teacher behind their backs. Harry said sarcastically, not to be outdone. Woof woof woof. Malfoy was about to say something, but Fang suddenly shouted, startling Malfoy and Harry. But then, the two of them realized that Yaya might have discovered something. Malfoy tremblingly raised the lantern in his hand and looked ahead seriously, trying to make out what was ahead. Harry was also a little scared at this time. With trembling hands, he took out his wand from his pocket and pointed it straight ahead. He was still mumbling something, as if he was ready to cast a spell as soon as there was any movement. Immediately afterwards, they saw a pure white horn falling to the ground, and silver blood spread all over the surrounding grass. There is a man in black robes on the unicorn, and it seems that he is sucking the blood of the unicorn. When Malfoy saw this scene, he was so frightened that he even forgot the dog leash in his hand. Fang escaped from Malfoy's grasp without any resistance and ran quickly behind him. Malfoy also noticed Yaya's departure at this time. Originally, he only had the courage to enter the Forbidden Forest because of his mighty Yaya. At this time, Yaya's departure broke Malfoy's last layer of sanity. Ah! Malfoy screamed and ran quickly along the way he came. Malfoy's scream clearly alarmed the man in black robes. He raised his head and looked at Harry, who was still there in a daze, and raised his hand to wipe the silver-white blood from the corner of his mouth. Harry watched the man in black robes in front of him slowly walking towards him, and he couldn't restrain the fear in his heart and backed away. However, this was a forest. Harry didn't pay attention to his feet and fell to the ground. However, the man in black robe was still approaching. Good chance. When Ryan saw this scene, his heart moved, and his whole body suddenly turned into a black mist and disappeared into the tree. The Forbidden Forest is so close to Hogwarts that Dumbledore can come at any time. Harry fell to the ground, looking at the man in black robes getting closer and closer, praying constantly in his heart. However, suddenly, he found another man in black robes appearing next to the unicorn's body. What happened next made Harry feel a little surprised. With a wave of the hand of the new man in black robe, the body of the unicorn on the ground disappeared in an instant. However, the actions of the man in black robes immediately left Harry speechless. The man in black robes took out a jar from his pocket that obviously did not meet the capacity of the bag and had a layer of silver-white liquid inside. At the same time, the unicorn blood that was originally scattered on the ground began to float and slowly fell into the bottle. Quirrell noticed something strange about Harry, because the boy no longer stared at him with fearful eyes, but looked behind him in surprise. Quirrell thought for a moment that Dumbledore had appeared. He turned around hurriedly and saw a man in black robes standing there, where a unicorn corpse should have been placed. That was him hope of survival. Damn it! An old and decaying voice came from Quirrell. This was Voldemort's voice. The unicorn is not only Quirrell's hope for survival, but also the key to whether he can gain enough strength to seize the Philosopher's Stone. Kill him! Voldemort's voice rang in Quirrell's ears. Quirrell also took out his wand, not for any other reason, because Ryan's move was really killing him. Avada Kedavra! Green light illuminated the dark Forbidden Forest. Ryan didn't panic at all. He ducked sideways to avoid Quirrell's life-killing curse, but suddenly there was the sound of a sharp arrow piercing the air behind him. Damn it, I forgot that the centaurs would get involved. Ryan cursed secretly, but without putting down his hand, he immediately released a magic shield behind his back. Ding! The arrow hit the magic shield and made a crisp sound, attracting everyone's attention. Quirrell looked at the arrows that fell to the ground and instantly realized the centaur's arrival. He now has some intention of retreating, and he is afraid of death. If this were not the case, then he would not have allowed Voldemort to take possession of him, nor would he have come to suck the unicorn's blood. Voldemort also had some intention of retreating. Before that, Quirrell had absorbed a lot of blood, and this power was enough for him to grab the Sorcerer's Stone. And most importantly, the arrival of the centaurs means that Dumbledore may arrive. Let's go, Voldemort said to Quirrell. Quirrell breathed a sigh of relief. What he was most afraid of was that Voldemort would ask him to rush forward and fight. After receiving the order, Quirrell floated instantly, then floated for a few times before disappearing in front of everyone. Ryan noticed Quirrell's disappearance, and also noticed the tall centaur behind him. The guy hiding in the black robe, hand over the body of the unicorn. The Holy Spirit will not allow you hidden rats to invade. Firenze aimed his bow at Ryan and said with great momentum. Ryan looked at Firenze in front of him, then turned to look at Harry who had just released the red flare, and curled his lips in disdain. Immediately afterwards, his body turned into a burst of black mist, blended into the Forbidden Forest, and disappeared. Firenze's pupil shrank, his hands subconsciously relaxed, and the arrow whizzed out, landing on the soil behind where Ryan originally stood. In Slytherin's dormitory, the clone Ryan who was sleeping on the bed suddenly turned into a black mist, and then the black mist condensed into Ryan again. The harvest is good, Ryan said with a smile. However, he was not in a hurry to decompose the unicorn's body, because he stored it in his own space bag. The space bag is different from the traceless stretch bag. There is no air in the space bag and cannot store living objects. Everything put into it will be frozen in time. So the unicorn carcass will not deteriorate if placed inside. Early the next morning, Ryan saw a pale Malfoy with thick dark circles under his eyes in the Slytherin common room. Obviously, this young man was frightened to death last night. But Ryan didn't have time to pay attention to him. Because the final exam was approaching, Hermione had been strictly asking Ryan to go to the library to review whenever he had free time.